Chapter 2341. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone and said, "This sacred ice lotus is extremely effective. If you only need to use it to save your life, you only need one petal. It's not just the petal, the lotus seed has the same effect. If you don't mind, you can each take a portion. If you don't think that's appropriate, we can keep it for now and distribute it when we find other treasures in the future." Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. The sacred ice lotus was easier to distribute than other treasures. Moreover, treasures like this were not something that could be found anywhere. This tree demon was so difficult to deal with, and only this sacred ice lotus was here. It would not be easy to find treasures of this level in other places. So, according to Bailey Hongzhuang's idea, it was better for everyone to distribute it like this. The others naturally thought of this and decided to distribute it together. If they were in danger, they could use it to save their lives. If they missed it today, it would not be easy to find another treasure like this in the future. Very quickly, everyone had divided the sacred ice lotus equally. In the end, there was only one lotus seed left. Everyone gave it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang did not reject it. Having a treasure like this on her was an extra layer of protection. As a cultivator, they often faced dangerous situations. No one knew when they would be in a situation where they couldn't protect their lives. We've been delayed here for quite some time. It's time to move out. Today was already the 8th day of the Battle of Zhuolu, and they were still in the periphery of the Battle of Zhuolu. It seemed that the other teams were much deeper in than them, and they had to catch up. Everyone quickly left the ice world. When they returned to the place where they had killed the tree demon, the blood on the ground had dried up, but there was still a pungent smell. Speaking of which, they had gotten off to a good start in dealing with the tree demon. The group slowly walked into the depths of the forest. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked peacefully and did not meet with any danger. This was all because of the tree demon's existence. All the demonic beasts within hundreds of miles had disappeared. It was probably because this place had become a forbidden area that the tree demon had absorbed all the blood it could and was unable to grow. Therefore, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others appear, the tree demon couldn't help but take the initiative to act. However, in the end, he still fell in their hands. The Battle of Zhuolu's forest is really vast. We've been walking for a few days, but I'm afraid we're not even at the center of the forest. Yin Ao Shuang looked around, her expression revealing a bit of sigh. Yin Ao Shuang, this battlefield is mostly a forest. Don't tell me you're still hoping to build a city for yourself? Li Yongbing chuckled. This kind of environment was the most common in the Shengxian continent. Who said anything about a city? It's just that we've been walking for so many days and we haven't even met a single team. This is a little boring. Yin Ao Shuang curled her lips and explained. Hearing this, the crowd sighed inwardly. The most important thing for them to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu was to obtain an identity badge. However, until now, they had not seen a single team. If this continued, it would not be a good thing. Chapter 2342. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. It was indeed a problem that they hadn't met any other teams. Logically speaking, although the Battle of Zhuolu covered a large area, there were also many teams participating. They should have met some other teams by now. Everyone, don't be impatient. We are gradually approaching the center of the forest. We may meet other teams at any time. Logically speaking, we shouldn't be too far away. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to calm everyone down. Being anxious and impatient wouldn't do them any good. Young Palace Master is right. Let's not be impatient. We should pay more attention to our surroundings. We may be ambushed at any time. Long Xianjing reminded everyone calmly. Before the young Palace Master appeared, he was the one leading the team. Now that the young Palace Master was here, he would naturally do his best to support the young Palace Master. Everyone nodded their heads. They understood that this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. They just couldn't help but complain a little. 2 days later, Master, we are already very far away from the tree demon. Until now, we have not met any other demonic beasts. Isn't this too strange? White Lion's eyes flashed with a vigilant light. There was definitely something fishy going on. You think so too? Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. She had also noticed this point. Even if the tree demon's attack range was very wide, they should have already exceeded the tree demon's territory. However, until now, they hadn't met any other demonic beasts. It was too peaceful. Master, could it be that we have entered the territory of another terrifying beast? Xiaohei's face was a little ugly. Only places with powerful demonic beasts would have no other demonic beasts. This was because every commander demonic beast had its own territory. No other demonic beasts were allowed to come close. I'm afraid that's the case. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. It seemed that there were quite a few terrifying demonic beasts in this battle of Zhuolu. Everyone be careful. We may have entered the territory of another demonic beast. We may meet it at any time. Be prepared to fight at any time. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice. The tree demon they encountered last time was already very difficult to deal with. This time, the thing in the middle of the forest would be even more difficult to deal with. Pei Yifan and the others' expressions changed when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. The same thought had appeared in their minds, but they had never voiced it out. However, it was clear that he could no longer continue to hold this mentality. After walking for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but stop. In front of him was a blur. The trees were blocked by the fog, and the visibility was extremely low. Moreover, this area was extremely wide, and the entire area in front of him was filled with these weapons. Young Palace Master, I'm afraid this is miasma. Long Xuanjing's voice sounded in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Miasma would often appear in some swamps in the forest, and everyone was not unfamiliar with this miasma. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and looked at the miasma wisely. It seems that if we want to move forward, we can only pass through this miasma. Otherwise, all our previous efforts will be in vain. Their progress wasn't very fast. If they went back the way they came, they would have to return empty-handed in this battle of Zhuolu. Chapter 23:43. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at everyone's expression and understood that everyone had the same thoughts as her. There is absolutely no possibility of retreat. Let's go in. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black phoenix eyes flashed with a determined light as she took the lead and walked into the miasma. Everyone, be careful of your surroundings. A swamp may appear at any time. Don't go too far away and keep in contact. Xiaohei and Xiao Bai sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders while Baisher followed beside Bailey Hongzhuang. In the past, Bailey Hongzhuang had also encountered miasma when she was in the Luo Yun mountain range. However, their team was too weak at that time. Now, the team was full of experts, so it was very easy to lead. Because miasma was very easy to appear in the forest, Limitless Palace had already prepared pills for everyone to face the miasma. Everyone had already taken the pills at the first moment, so the miasma could no longer affect them. However, as everyone went deeper and deeper, they found that the miasma was so dense that they could not see the ground 1 meter away from them. This miasma is really too dense, and according to the current situation, the range has already exceeded our expectations. Yan Aoshuang's face was serious. If they lost their direction in this miasma, it would be an extremely terrible thing. In this kind of place, it was not easy to rest at night because the visibility was too low. If they were attacked, everyone's reaction speed would be very slow. Most importantly, in such a strange place, their spiritual power was also affected. Let's make some marks. Only then can we determine the direction. Long Xianjing said slowly. From the moment they walked into the miasma, they could still determine the direction. However, as they went deeper and deeper, it became more and more difficult to determine the direction. Soon, everyone walked along the way and marked the number 1, 2, 3 for on the tree to determine the direction. After walking for a while, Li Yongbing suddenly cried out in surprise. Oh no, we're back to the original position. As soon as she said this, everyone looked at the tree trunk that Li Yongbing was pointing at. Sure enough, there was a 1 written on the tree trunk. It was the mark they left at the beginning. I feel that we've been walking in the same direction. How can we be back to the original position? Pei Yifan's face was full of confusion. He had been carefully sensing along the way and did not notice any change in direction at all. Let's walk again. Bailey Hongzhuang's face sank. Obviously, the current situation was not easy to solve. Hearing this, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. However, under the current situation, they had no other choice. However, after they had walked for a while, Li Yongbing's awkward and helpless voice rang out again. Young Palace Master, we're back to the original position. Everyone took a closer look, and they saw the familiar one-word one. Bailey Hongzhuang was lost in thought, her black and white eyes as bright and clear as the moon. I clearly feel that we have been walking straight. Why are we back to the original position? Faced with this situation, everyone was indescribable is of this. With there's Hongzies of there's longs, was that sense of the wood definitely not to be wrong. Chapter 2344. Everyone nodded. If there was only a small deviation every time, it was indeed difficult to find in this miasma. Let's take a break first and think of a solution. Since they had already tried to walk 2 laps and could not find any problem, even if they did not believe it, the result would be the same. This demonic miasma forest was not simple. If they did not think of a way to break it, they would be trapped here. Everyone sat on the ground and formed a circle to guard against any danger that might appear at any time. Along the way, I did not find anything wrong. Moreover, the place where the miasma is always moist. There were footsteps everywhere we walked, but when we walked back again, the footsteps disappeared. It's really strange. Li Yongbing's face was very ugly. He had paid attention to these details before. It was because he did not see any footprints that he felt that they did not go the wrong way. However, he did not expect that he was wrong in the end. Listening to Li Yongbing's words, everyone could not help but be stunned. They did not pay attention to this matter. Chapter 2345. However, there were many types of spirit arrays, and Bailey Hongzhuang had studied them for a period of time in her past life, so she had a certain understanding of them. She had to distinguish which type of spirit array it belonged to before she could come up with a solution. Otherwise, these spirit arrays would often have the effect of punishment. Once she made a mistake in the process of deciphering them, they would be attacked. In such a huge miasma forest, it was impossible for there to not be a single demonic beast. The only explanation was that the spirit array had trapped all the demonic beasts in it, so the demonic beasts could not see them, and they could not see the demonic beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered for an hour, and everyone looked around, occasionally glancing at Bailey Hongzhuang. Towards this demonic miasma forest, everyone was really confused. Even though everyone had already made preparations before they entered the Battle of Zhuolu, but ever since they entered the Battle of Zhuolu, everything they saw had an indescribable strangeness to it, making them feel extremely helpless. Now, among everyone, only the young palace master had discovered something, and they could only wait here. Finally, Bailey Hongzhuang kept her pen and paper, and her ink-black eyes flashed with a bright light. Young palace master, did you discover something? Everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had stopped pondering, and they all began to ask her. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly and said, "If I'm not wrong, we should be trapped in an array." Array? Everyone could not help but exclaim. This array was something that they rarely came into contact with. Although they had heard of it before, they did not understand it at all. No one would have thought that there would be an array in the Battle of Zhuolu. If that was the case, wouldn't they be trapped here? Immediately, everyone's hearts sank. At this moment, outside the Battle of Zhuolu, there were also a few sect elders discussing the situation inside the Battle of Zhuolu. I wonder which team is unlucky this year to be randomly sent to the path of the tree demons. That path was designed to be too difficult. After so many years of the Battle of Zhuolu, no disciple has ever been able to walk from that path to the center of the Battle of Zhuolu. Every time, they would be trapped in the formation for 3 months before being brought back by us. There's nothing we can do about it. Since it was set up in the first place, although everyone has complained about it over the years, they have tacitly agreed to its existence. Luck was also a part of strength. Whichever team is unlucky enough to encounter it, it's their own bad luck. The leaders of each faction hoped that their own faction would not be so unlucky as to walk on that path. Otherwise, they would really be at the bottom of the list. In the past, the teams that had been teleported to that location had always been last place in the Battle of Zhuelu. Although everyone knew the reason behind this, it was still hard for anyone to accept the title of last place. Most importantly, the cultivators couldn't be blamed for this, because they couldn't be blamed either. Linfeng, which team do you think will walk the most difficult path this year? Nangong Wu stood beside Yu Linfeng. A cool breeze blew, and her fine black hair danced in the wind. Their fine black hair tangled together under the cool breeze. Yu Linfeng shook his head. No one can say for certain things like this. We can only leave it to fate. I only hope that it won't be our team. Otherwise, it would be terrible. Chapter 2346. If Nangong Wu knew that Limitless Palace's team was the unfortunate ones who walked into this path, she would definitely vomit blood. This was the most unlucky situation. Even if there were teams that fell into this trap every year, Limitless Palace had only participated in the Battle of Zhuelu for a few years. However, this time, the young Palace Master was the one leading the team. This kind of problem was simply too depressing. Compared to the various guesses of the outside world, Bailey Hongzhuang and her team were completely oblivious. They only thought that the difficulty of the Battle of Zhuelu was the same as theirs. They were still lamenting that the difficulty of the Battle of Zhuelu was not small. If Limitless Palace's disciples knew that the real situation was like this, they would probably feel extremely unbalanced. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that everyone was looking at her in shock. She knew that they did not have much understanding of this array. In fact, the formation itself was a rather obscure thing. Most of the cultivators put all their energy into cultivation. No one would study such unorthodox things. Thinking about it, only Bailey Hongzhuang, who was interested in many things, would have the heart to understand this kind of thing. To Bailey Hongzhuang, although there were many things that she was not proficient in, she had a rough understanding of them. This was because to master a skill, it required a lot of time and energy. However, if she only needed to understand a little, it would be much easier. That's right. We have fallen into an array. Only by breaking the array will we be able to walk out. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was calm and certain. Her black, jade-like eyes sparkled with a luster that made people believe her. But young Palace Master, we don't have any understanding of arrays. Pei Yifan could not help but feel anxious. They had only heard of such things before. It was impossible for them to break the array. Long Xianjing and the rest looked at each other. If they knew that there would be an array here, they would rather walk back than be trapped here. Young Palace Master, arrays shouldn't exist in the Battle of Zhuelu, right? Yin Ao Shuang couldn't help but doubt. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, but this was too unbelievable. If there really is such a thing in the Battle of Zhuelu, not only us, I can guarantee that the other teams won't be able to solve it either. Long Xianjing said with certainty. One had to know that none of the factions would tell the participating disciples about the Battle of Zhuelu. As such, unless some of these disciples were naturally interested in formations, they would be trapped to death. Looking at everyone's suspicious faces, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It is strange that an array exists in the Battle of Zhuelu. However, I am certain that this is an array. Young Palace Master, how did you determine that this is a formation? Some of the formations are specifically used to trap opponents. Once a cultivator falls into the formation, their sense of direction and everything else will be lost. It just so happened that there was so much miasma here that it was difficult to determine if a formation was set up. If it wasn't a formation, but an ordinary miasma forest, would you have gotten lost? The crowd couldn't help but shake their heads. That was absolutely impossible. Chapter 2347. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone thought for a moment. The situation was indeed as Bailey Hongzhuang had said. Before this, they had never encountered such a strange situation. But if this is really a formation, then what should we do? Li Yongbing's face became incomparably ugly. If they had been trapped in this formation for the past 3 months, not only would they not become famous after they got out, they would also become a complete laughing stock in the eyes of the people. Perhaps, in the future, they would not be able to raise their heads in front of other cultivators. Long Xuanjing's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and asked, "Young Palace Master, do you have some understanding of formations?" If it were them, they would not even be able to tell that this was a formation. Since the young Palace Master was able to determine it, then at least the young Palace Master had a certain understanding of it. Everyone's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, all their hopes were placed on the young Palace Master. I have already determined the structure of this formation. As for whether it will succeed or not, we still have to try. As soon as these words came out, everyone could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. As long as there was a way, they were willing to give it a try. At least, it was much better than sitting here and waiting for death. It turned out that the young Palace Master had taken out a pen and paper to think of a way to break the formation. Suddenly, everyone understood. "Young Palace Master, just try according to your method." Everyone spoke out one after another. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and a serious and dignified look appeared on her delicate and flawless face. Later on, everyone follow our footsteps. As long as there is a slight deviation in the process of breaking the formation, there will be unpredictable consequences. Everyone nodded one after another. They all understood the importance of this matter. After everyone memorized the method of breaking the formation in their hearts, she led everyone forward. "Take 3 steps to the left, 5 steps to the right, 7 steps straight," Bailey Hongzhuang reminded everyone as they walked. This formation was very large. Even she had to calculate for a long time before she could calculate it. Bailey Hongzhuang had a certain amount of confidence in breaking the formation. Everyone followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang, remembering Bailey Hongzhuang's words, not daring to deviate in the slightest. Originally, there were still some worries in everyone's heart, but after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so skillfully explain the solution, they were relieved. Although this array was larger than the average array, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't spend too much time cracking it. Everyone followed Bailey Hongzhuang and cautiously walked over. Only then did they realize that the miasma in front of them had disappeared. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to look at the miasma behind her, and a joyful smile appeared on her pretty face. It seemed that her judgment was not wrong. She had successfully walked out of the demonic miasma forest. "Oh my God, we really made it out. I didn't expect this to really be a formation. I didn't know what I was walking on. I only felt that it was a mess. But it turned out that we had been walking in a straight line. This formation is really powerful. If it wasn't for the young Palace Master leading the team, we would really be finished this time." Everyone was overjoyed. All the depression and dissatisfaction in the demonic miasma forest had dissipated. At this moment, they only felt a strong sense of relief. Chapter 23:48. Master, there's nothing you can't do. Baisher's large, clear eyes sparkled and were filled with admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. Out of the entire team, only Master knew how to break the spell. The rest of the team did not know how to do so. Seeing Baisher's adorable look, Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baisher's little head and smiled. "Of course, your master is no ordinary person." Baisher rubbed its head against Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and squinted its eyes comfortably. Its heart was filled with pride. Who said that as a beast king, it had made a contract with an ordinary cultivator back then? Now, everyone should know that its master was an extremely powerful person. "Young Palace Master, now that the spell has been broken, we can continue our journey." Long Xianjing smiled. At that moment, he was filled with admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. However, just as they were about to leave, they suddenly heard voices in front of them. "Miasma has appeared here. How troublesome. We have to speed up. If we continue at this rate, we'll be left behind by the other teams." Hearing the soft voices in the distance, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could not help but look at each other. Another team was approaching. "We've been in the Battle of the Deer for so long, and we've finally met another team." Pei Yifun's eyes lit up, and he lowered his voice. His voice was filled with excitement. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest smiled as well. They had thought that they had stayed for a few days and the other teams would have left by now. They never thought that there would be another team behind them. "Young Palace Master, we've finally met another team." Shall we do it? Long Xianjing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. The most important thing in the Battle of the Deer was to obtain the identity card. Now that they had coincidentally met another team and there were no other teams nearby, it was undoubtedly the best time to make a move. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. She looked at the crowd and said, "Let's do it." After waiting for so long, they still hadn't found a good opportunity. Now that it had appeared in front of them, how could they miss it? As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, everyone's face showed a smile. "Young Palace Master, let's see which team it is first. If it's a strong enemy, we have to be careful." Yin Ao Shuang could not help but remind him. If the other party was very strong, then if they went up, they might be robbed of their identity cards. In this battle for the throne, he could not be blindly confident in his own strength. Bailey Hongzhuang licked her bright red lips and said with a smile, "No matter which force he comes from, this identity card is ours." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression couldn't help but change a little. They didn't expect the young palace master's style to be so domineering. He didn't care who the other party was and directly decided. It's good to be confident, but if you're too confident, it's very likely that you'll fail miserably. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone's expression and said with a smile, "We've just destroyed this array. Now I'll set it up again and trap them inside. Won't we be in an invincible position? If they could win, then they would fight. If they couldn't, then they could leave the array." However, the other party couldn't. Chapter 23:49. Then, under the curious and surprised gazes of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly began to arrange the array. Bailey Hongzhuang did not expect to arrange an array during the Battle of Zhuolu, so she did not bring the materials needed to arrange the array. Fortunately, the demonic miasma forest itself was very suitable for the arrangement of arrays. In addition, when Bailey Hongzhuang had cracked the previous array, she had not destroyed the materials, so as long as she found these things, she could still arrange another array. The crowd watched as Bailey Hongzhuang searched around the demonic miasma forest, as if she had X-ray vision, quickly finding everything. Suddenly, the crowd's admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang was like a torrential river. Young Palace Master did not just have a little understanding of arrays, she completely understood them. The crowd stood behind Bailey Hongzhuang with great interest, watching Bailey Hongzhuang arrange the array, but the dazzling appearance made them unable to understand it all. In fact, those who had never been in contact with arrays, even if they watched the other party arrange the array, they would not understand the mystery of it. The crowd just stared at each other, their hearts filled with anticipation of snatching the other party's identity card later. Bailey Hongzhuang arranged the array very quickly, and after she finished the last step, the crowd was amazed to find that the originally clear scene in front of them suddenly changed, as if they had been transported to another environment. The crowd could not help but open their mouths wide. The situation was really too shocking. This is the power of arrays. It's really amazing. Pei Yifan's eyes were full of amazement. Previously, he was inexplicably trapped in the array, and then he followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang and inexplicably walked out. He simply couldn't understand this profound thing. Now that he saw the changes in the array with his own eyes, he finally understood how amazing it was. "I'm afraid the other party will be dumbfounded now." Yin Ao Shuang chuckled. Once this method was used, the other party would have no way to break it. Originally, they thought they were the most unlucky, but now it seemed that the other party was much more unlucky than them. The crowd looked at each other and smiled. Their young palace master really had many tricks up her sleeve. The other party was destined to lose at their hands. After Bailey Hongzhuang arranged all the arrays, the crowd could not see what was in front of them, and could not help but turn a look at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Wait for the other party to go deeper, then we will move." Bailey Hongzhuang sat on the ground, lowered her voice, and motioned for everyone to sit next to her. "When we move later, you will do as I say. Just remember the way to go in and out. The other party will not be able to catch up to you." She believed that after snatching the identity card, the other party would be flustered and flustered. How would they remember how they left? As a result, the other party would be trapped in the array. We will follow the young palace master's arrangements. Soon, the array was the array to escape to the array was like Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but still could not find the direction. Now is the time we can move. At Bailey Hongzhuang's order, the crowd, who had long been ready, walked into the array, including Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi. Chapter 2350. Bailey Hongzhuang stayed outside the demonic miasma forest. She had to pay attention to everyone's situation. If someone accidentally lost their way, she would be able to point out the direction and rescue them. Although they were not clear about the strength of the other party, they were in the dark while their opponents were in the light. Moreover, their Limitless Palaces team was not weak either. The Hung Mountain Sect's cultivators were in a bad mood. Ever since they came to the Battle of Deer, they felt very unlucky. First, they inexplicably fell into a trap and did not get any treasure. They even spent a few days to get out of it. This was simply a bad start. Originally, they wanted to shine in this Battle of Deer, but they did not expect that their progress was far behind the others. So far, not only did they not get any treasure, they also did not see any other team's cultivators. This made them very anxious. Young Sect Master, we seem to have returned to where we started. At this time, a disciple's voice rang out. Soon, everyone found that the scene here was so familiar. They had clearly been here before. Damn it, we walked all the way. Why didn't we find any clues? Hung Mountain Sect's young sect master Feng Qianyi said in a flustered and exasperated manner. Originally, he was very annoyed that he had fallen into this situation. He did not expect to enter this strange miasma forest and go the wrong way. He was simply angered to death. Young Sect Master, what should we do now? What else can we do? Continue to walk. Feng Qianyi's face was cold. This time, everyone pay attention. We must not go the wrong way again. When the Limitless Palace's disciples approached, they heard the other party's conversation. They could not help but laugh in their hearts. At this time, they still could not find any clues. They really did not know anything about arrays. So it's the Hung Mountain Sect's team. Among all the forces, the Hung Mountain Sect belongs to the middle level. If we want to snatch their identity card, it will not be difficult. Long Xuanjing's eyes were filled with confidence. Other than a few strong teams, ordinary teams were no match for Limitless Palace. Yin Aoshuang and the others' faces also revealed a smile. Originally, they thought that although they had obtained treasures in the Battle of Deer, there was no progress in their identity card. They did not expect that when they wanted to sleep, someone would send a pillow to them. As long as they could snatch the opponent's identity card, their harvest would definitely not bad. Let's move, Long Xianjing said. Everyone nodded in agreement. Following which, they had already chosen their targets and were preparing to launch a sneak attack. With the strength of Long Xianjing and the others, a sneak attack would definitely catch the enemy off guard. The Hengshan Sect's team walked quickly. In the next second, the last person in their team was dragged out with his mouth covered. The other party didn't even have the time to cry out in alarm before the attack of the Limitless Palace's disciple arrived. Very quickly, an identity token fell into the hands of the Limitless Palace disciple. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi could not help but smile smugly when they saw this. This kind of sneak attack was really convenient. He could solve all of this without anyone noticing, and he could even preserve his strength. After all they needed was the identity card. Chapter 2351. Bailey Hongzhuang stood outside the array. She knew the situation inside the array like the back of her hand. Obviously, the other party's strength was not considered very strong in the Battle of Zhuolu. It was only a matter of time before they wanted to snatch the identity tokens. There was no need for her to make a move. She only needed to wait here for a moment, and Long Xianjing and the rest would be able to settle everything. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking in her heart. They had already participated in the Battle of Zhuolu for more than 10 days. She did not know when they would be able to meet up with Di Beichen. Originally, she wanted to meet up with Di Beichen as soon as possible after the Battle of Zhuolu. However, looking at the current situation, this was completely a matter of luck. She did not know where the Tiangang Sect's team had been teleported to. It would be very difficult to find them. Now, She could only hope that the two teams were not teleported too far away. If they were, then they would only have a chance to meet in the middle of the Battle of Zhuolu. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking, Long Xianjing and the rest had already walked out of the array. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at everyone and found that there were more or less injuries on everyone's body. Even if the other party's strength was not their match, once they exploded, their power could not be underestimated. However, although everyone was more or less injured, their faces were full of smiles. Young Palace Master, we have already obtained the 10 identity tokens. Long Xianjing took the lead to walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and handed the identity tokens to Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at the 10 identity tokens, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a charming smile. You guys are too awesome. Bailey Hongzhuang gave everyone a thumbs up. Although she had already known that the result was predestined, the speed of Long Xianjing and the rest still surprised her. Young Palace Master, if you had not thought of this method, it would have been too difficult for us to obtain the identity tokens with such a small price. Yin Aoshuang was now not only convinced by Bailey Hongzhuang, but also deeply admired her. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was younger than her, Bailey Hongzhuang's ability made people have no choice but to sign admiration. This proves that our team's strength is very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. Although Limitless Palace had not been established for a long time, this sudden rise of a new force had surprised many people. If you have the ability, tell us which power you are from. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were celebrating, a furious voice came from the demonic miasma forest. Who else could it be but Feng Qianyi? Feng Qianyi was simply angered to death. This was truly a case of a tiger being bullied by a dog. After entering the demonic of Zhuolu, most importantly, after being ambushed, they wanted to chase after the other party, but the other party seemed to know some kind of sorcery. They just took a few steps and disappeared in front of them. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't catch up. This was simply infuriating. Was there anything more strange than this in this world? Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and smiled. Feng Qianyi, you have to listen carefully. I am Limitless Palace's young palace master, Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 2352. When Feng Qianyi heard the name of Limitless Palace, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He had thought of many possibilities, but he really didn't think that the other party was from Limitless Palace. However, when he heard that the other party claimed to be the young palace master of Limitless Palace, named Bailey Hongzhuang, he had already determined that the other party was deliberately deceiving him. If you want to deceive people, at least find a more believable one. Limitless Palace doesn't have a young palace master at all. If you have the ability, tell us your true identity. The disciples of Hung Mountain sect all glared at the misty person in front of them. The other party stole their things and even dared to laugh at their IQ. Limitless Palace had not been established for a long time, and Palace Master Yulin Feng was very young, so they had never appointed a young palace master. So far, they had never heard of any young palace master in Limitless Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang and Long Xianjing looked at each other and shrugged helplessly. This world is so strange. Every time I tell the truth, the other party doesn't believe me. When these words came out, Yin Aoshuang and the others couldn't help but laugh. The other party didn't believe it at all. This was completely beyond their expectations. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice. She had already told the truth. If the other party insisted on not believing it, she couldn't do anything. You made up such a lie that no one would believe to make me believe it. Do you really think I'm a fool? Feng Qianyi was even more angry. If he believed such a ridiculous identity, he would really become a joke. What a fool! Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Hung Mountain sect found such a pig-headed guy to be the next sect master. She felt that the future of Hung Mountain sect was really worrying. Let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her right hand, indicating that everyone should leave. Young Palace Master, are we just going to trap the disciples of Hung Mountain sect in this array? Li Yongbing couldn't help but ask. This array originally existed. I just restored it. If the disciples of Hung Mountain sect can't get out, it can only be said that they are not capable enough. Bailey Hongzhuang answered matter-of-factly. She was not so kind as to release this group of people to be her opponents. Everyone followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang and left. They could not help but mourn for the Hongshan sect. Who asked them to be so unlucky? It seemed that the Hung Mountain sect was destined to be at the bottom of the Battle of Zhuolu this time. After passing through the demonic miasma forest, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others discovered that a swamp had appeared in front of them. The swamp was so wide that there was no other way except to cross it. Everyone had just passed through the demonic miasma forest, and now that they saw this scene again, they were completely speechless. Isn't this Battle of Zhuolu a little too abnormal? You've practically overcome all obstacles along the way. Xiaohei ridiculed. This simply did not give them any time to rest. Questions came one after another. Although Long Xianjing and the others didn't say it out loud, they couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Who was the one who set up this strange test? If this situation continues, I'm afraid that we may not be able to reach the center of the Battle of Zhuolu even after 3 months. The corner of Yin Ao Shuang's mouth twitched. Every test took them a long time. Chapter 2353. If the people outside of the Battle of Zhuolu were to find out that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had only taken a dozen or so days to reach the swamp, they would certainly find it unbelievable. Because in the previous batches, the teams who had taken this route had not even been able to pass through the first stage. From their point of view, even if a team had managed to pass through the tree demons, once they had entered the demonic miasma forest, they would have no choice but to obediently wait for the Battle of Zhuolu to end before they could rescue them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were now complaining that their progress was too slow. The cultivators who had failed in the previous batches would definitely want to teach them a lesson. If this kind of speed was considered slow, then what were they? Were they trying to torture them to death? Unfortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were completely unaware of this. Bailey Hongzhuang even felt that she had underestimated the cultivators who had taken part in the Battle of Zhuolu. The journey had been so difficult, but the other party had been able to reach the center of the Battle of Zhuolu so early. Their power was evident. Bailey Hongzhuang's inky black phoenix eyes sized up the large swamp in front of her. Her willowy brows furrowed slightly. From her point of view, the swamp was not a difficult problem across. However, she felt that the bottom of the swamp was not so peaceful. Master, there are dark currents surging under the swamp. There are demonic beasts present. Baisher's warning rang out in Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. He was very sensitive to the presence of demonic beasts. Even though the fluctuations were very well hidden, he could still sense them. Hearing this, a look of understanding flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. It seems that the reason for all this lies here. The crowd looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. They did not understand why Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly said such a thing out of the blue. Previously, when we had not encountered any demonic beasts, I had determined that there must be some incredible demonic beasts nearby. Previously, when we were in the demonic miasma forest, we did not encounter any demonic beasts either. This means that the demonic beasts must be at the bottom of the swamp. The crowd's expressions slowly changed as they looked at the extremely calm swamp. There did not seem to be any signs of life there at all. Everyone was smart enough to know that this swamp was not just used to deal with them. There must be other tests. Young Palace Master, it's getting late. Why don't we rest here for a while and wait for the sun to rise? Long Xuanjing's expression was solemn and wise. None of the tests here were simple. If they acted rashly, they might suffer heavy losses. I think so too. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. This swamp was originally a piece of pitch-black soil. If they were to move at night, they would be no different from blind people. On the other hand, the demonic beasts would not be affected at all. Everyone retreated some distance and found a suitable place to rest. After breaking the array and attacking the disciples of the Hung Mountain sect, everyone was very tired. After Bailey Hongzhuang handed over the task of keeping watch to the 3 beasties, she also began to circulate her cultivation method. She might face a big battle tomorrow, so she had to adjust her state to the best possible state. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, But the other disciples also seemed to have realized that tomorrow's trial would not be easy to pass. Everyone was adjusting their breathing, restoring their condition to the peak. Di Beichun looked at the gradually falling curtain of night. His long and narrow eyes slightly narrowed. His expression was filled with worry and longing. Chapter 2354. None of the cultivators in the Battle of Zhualu were simple characters. The Limitless Palaces team was naturally not weak. However, it was not uncommon for teams to team up in the Battle of Zhualu. On the contrary, it was very common. With Bailey Hongzhuang's character, if the other party teamed up to snatch the identity token, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not back down obediently. That would be dangerous. It was not uncommon for teams to be wiped out in the Battle of Zhualu. He did not want Hongzhuang to be in danger. Xiao Feilin and the rest could feel Di Beichun's worry. In fact, from the moment they entered the Battle of Zhualu, Di Beichun seemed to be looking for something. Compared to the other teams, their team speed was really fast. When Xiao Feilin saw Di Beichun's worried expression, her first thought was that Di Beichun was looking for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, when this thought surfaced, Xiao Feilin immediately killed it, because that was simply impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang did not even participate in the Battle of Zhualu. How could the young sect leader be looking for her here? For a moment, Xiao Feilin and the rest could not understand. In fact, there was another person who was in the same situation as Mo Yunjue. Ever since he helped Bailey Hongzhuang save her parents, Mo Yunjue had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang again. Now, the distance between him and Bailey Hongzhuang was getting further and further. Even though he knew that it was impossible, he still wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang. It was not for anything else. He just wanted to see her and feel at ease. With his character, as long as he wanted something, he would get it even if he had to resort to unscrupulous means. However, when facing Bailey Hongzhuang, he could not do such a thing. Because Bailey Hongzhuang was the only person he cared about in his life, he didn't want to see Bailey Hongzhuang unhappy, not to mention that he was the one who hurt her. He originally thought that if Di Beichun did not treat Bailey Hongzhuang well and dare to hurt her heart, he would definitely teach Di Beichun a lesson. In the future, Bailey Hongzhuang would be under his protection. However, now that he saw Di Beichun treat Bailey Hongzhuang wholeheartedly, his heart was also somewhat gratified, because at least this proved that Bailey Hongzhuang's taste was excellent, and she would not be sad. The only thing he felt was bitterness in his heart. These days, he had always wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang, but now, he didn't even have a reason to see Bailey Hongzhuang. When the Battle of Zhualu began, he knew that Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang would participate. This was his chance to see Bailey Hongzhuang again. As long as he could take a look, it would be good for him. At least he wouldn't have to sink into the darkness. His sunshine could not accompany him in the end. Everything was just his greed, right? No matter what, he hoped to meet her sooner. This time, those who participated in the Battle of Zhualu with Mo Yunjue were all his confidants. So many people knew who Mo Yunjue had always liked. The Tower Master had never cared about any woman, but now this woman actually liked someone else. Everyone could not help but feel indignant for the Tower Master. How many men in this world were as outstanding as the Tower Master? However, the Tower Master had already given them an order. No one could say anything, or they would die without a doubt. Chapter 2355. Everyone stood up in tacit understanding and slowly approached the swamp. Today, they had to figure out what kind of terrifying demonic beast was in the swamp. No matter how terrifying the demonic beast was, they only had one path, and that was to charge through it. No matter what kind of stumbling block appeared on the road, they had to get rid of this stumbling block. Looking at the calm swamp in front of them, it didn't look like there were any living creatures in it. Everyone couldn't help but frown. Young Palace Master, should we think of a way to pass through this swamp without alerting this fellow? Or should we kill this fellow first before passing through the swamp? Long Xianjing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Different situations required different methods. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Last night, the place where they were resting was not far from the swamp, but they didn't suffer any attacks. It could be seen that the fellow didn't like to leave the swamp. If they wanted to pass through the swamp without alerting that fellow, it wasn't impossible. However, if that fellow suddenly appeared halfway, everyone would be caught off guard. Of course, there was another important reason. What do you all think of the sacred frost lotus? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up into a meaningful smile. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. Their lips curled up into a smile that was similar to Bailey Hongzhuang's. Young Palace Master, let's do something big. Everyone laughed. Previously, they had spent a lot of effort to deal with the tree demon, but the final reward was also extremely good. Although the swamp in front of them looked a little strange and unfathomable, if they could get rid of this fellow and obtain treasures, then they didn't mind having a big battle. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile gradually widened, and her voice was tinged with a hint of a smile. Looks like our team's character is the same. She didn't need to say it out loud, as everyone had already thought of it. The moment these words came out, everyone couldn't help but chuckle softly. Like captain, like team. Now, they were very familiar with the young palace master style of doing things. And this style, they liked it. That's right, young palace master. We're all following you now, Li Yongbing said with a smile. Although they hadn't spent much time with the young palace master, they liked the simple and crude way of doing things. As a cultivator, there was no need for so much nonsense. Just make a move. In the face of danger, if he had the ability, he would charge in. If he didn't have the ability, he would run. Occasionally, he would sneak in and attack. If there was a treasure, he would never let it go. Haha, then let's go all the way and not let go of any chance of finding treasures. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed wantonly. Every obstacle on this path was not easy to solve. She believed that there would be no shortage of treasures. In fact, everything was just as Bailey Hongzhuang had expected. This was a path that all forces knew was difficult, but at the same time, the treasures on this path were also the most precious. Back then, when a certain freak had set up this path, he had said that only a sufficiently powerful team could pass through this path. If one wanted to obtain good treasures, they had to show sufficient strength. Therefore, a certain pervert had spared no effort in setting up obstacles on this path, but he had also spared no effort in setting up this treasure. Chapter 2356. Long Xianjing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was much younger than him, and his heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. Previously, when the young palace master had not arrived, he had been the one to lead the entire team. Although there had not been any problems with their interactions, they had not been as united as they were now. After the incident with the tree demon and the formation, everyone's admiration for the young palace master had reached a peak. This was because the young palace master was not only daring, she was also intelligent and powerful. With such a young palace master by their side, they did not have to worry about too much. This was because the young palace master had always looked as if she had a card up her sleeve. In the past, Long Xianjing had always felt that his power, talent, and even abilities were not too far off from the successors. However, after witnessing Bailey Hongzhuang's leadership, he finally understood the difference between them. In a short period of time, she had made the entire team submit to her. She was swift and decisive, yet she was a wise leader. This was not something that an average person could do. Let's see what kind of big fellow is in the swamp. Her bright eyes, like obsidian, flashed with a dignified and serious light. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was stained with a bit of calmness and seriousness. Her expression changed so quickly and without the slightest abruptness. Everyone followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang. Once this big fellow was awakened, they would have to start a great battle. However, they liked this feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bai Shi and said, "Bai Shi, go." White Lion immediately understood and walked to the front of the group. He looked at the extremely calm swamp and let out a loud roar. Roar! The deafening roar of a beast rang out. Bai Shi was full of energy, and even the air seemed to ripple. Bailey Hongzhuang held the colored glass, sword in her hand, and fixed her gaze on the swamp. This big fellow had not come out, so they could only lure it out. As a beast king, White Lion's loud roar would definitely alarm him and make him come out. After Bai Shi roared, he returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. He confidently gave Bailey Hongzhuang a look. As long as he made a move, that fellow would definitely come out. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded without leaving a trace. Her gaze was still sharp and sharp. Since White Lion had told her that this fellow's level was very high, it was obvious how powerful this fellow was. Even if all of them joined forces, she could not guarantee victory. After all, the Shangxian continent still had some demonic beasts that were extremely powerful. There's no movement in the swamp. Is that guy unwilling to come out? When everyone saw that the swamp was still as calm as ever, they could not help but guess what was going on. Don't worry, they'll definitely come out, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Everyone suddenly put away the doubts in their hearts and maintained the same appearance as Bailey Hongzhuang, ready to go. Now, everyone no longer had any doubts about the young palace lord words because all their previous suspicions had been proven by the facts. The young palace lord's words were true. Not too long after Bailey Hongzhuang had spoken, everyone felt a bulge suddenly appear in the middle of the swamp. Then, the bulge grew larger and larger at lightning speed. It was like a small hill growing larger and larger. Chapter 23:57. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a gigantic creature suddenly emerged from the swamp, causing mud to splatter everywhere. Roar! A deafening roar rang out, and it was so loud that it could be heard from hundreds of miles away. For a moment, everyone could feel the ground trembling. As the gigantic creature emerged from the swamp, everyone realized that the depth of the swamp had decreased by a few centimeters. Such a huge swamp had decreased in depth due to the absence of this demonic beast. It was obvious that this demonic beast was enormous. When everyone saw the appearance of the demonic beast, their hearts skipped a beat. Black Atlas Snake. It's the Black Atlas Snake. Pei Yifan looked at the 100-meter-long snake in front of him in shock, and he fell into a daze. The Black Atlas Snake was famous among all the demonic beasts. It had a huge body and was extremely powerful. It liked to stay in the swamp, and it had a violent temperament. It had killed countless people. He never thought that he would see the Black Atlas Snake in the Battle of Zhuolu. One had to know that a demonic beast like the Black Atlas Snake was an overlord in the mountains. Isn't this Battle of Zhuolu a little too crazy? Even a demonic beast like the Black Atlas Snake has appeared. What else is impossible? Even though everyone had already mentally prepared themselves, they still felt extremely speechless when they saw this scene. This Black Atlas Snake's strength is probably equivalent to a rank 5 Blue Realm cultivator. With its enormous strength and defense, it will be very difficult for us to deal with it. Long Xuanjing's face was extremely ugly. This demonic beast's strength had exceeded their expectations. Most of the people in the team were Blue Realm cultivators. The difference in strength was too great, and even if they worked together, they would not be able to achieve much. However, when they found out that it was the Black Atlas Snake, they felt a sense of relief. Fortunately, they did not leave the swamp directly. Otherwise, if the Black Atlas Snake suddenly appeared while they were crossing the swamp, they would not be able to fight back at all. After the Black Atlas Snake roared, its two huge lantern-like eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Its breath blew in front of everyone, and a fishy smell spread, causing everyone to frown. Baisher stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Even in the face of such a huge beast, Baisher was still arrogant. The Black Atlas Snake was one of the most powerful demonic beasts. However, Baisher was a beast king, and its level was higher than the Black Atlas Snake. Naturally, it was not afraid of the Black Atlas Snake. The Black Atlas Snake looked at Baisher, and a human-like light flashed in its eyes. It didn't expect to see a beast king here. Moreover, this beast king was contracted by a human cultivator. It was a little too funny. However, this beast king was clearly still very young. Even if its level was higher than its own, its strength was completely incomparable. This made it heave a sigh of relief. Young Palace Master, the Black Snake is too strong. What should we do? Everyone could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Facing such a demonic beast, if they were to fight it head-on, it would be difficult for them to win. Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked when she saw the Black Atlas Snake, but she quickly calmed down. Chapter 23:58. There's no way to go around this swamp. Furthermore, This fellow has already been awakened by us. It will not let us go so easily. Therefore, there's only one path left for us to fight. Bailey Hongzhuang appeared very calm. In a situation where there was no way out, there was no point in thinking about anything else. By sure, will your rank suppression be effective against this fellow? Generally speaking, with Baishu's status as the Beast King, ordinary demonic beasts would definitely bow down to him. However, the black atlas snake in front of them was only slightly weaker than Baishu. However, Baishu was still young, and this fellow was already so big. The effect would probably be negligible. Baishu's expression was also somewhat dignified. This fellow's strength has reached such a level. Although my rank suppression has a certain effect, it can only restrain it a little. It's fine as long as it can restrain it a little. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. This situation was much better than what she had imagined. As long as it had a little effect, it would be good. Later on, I will be the main force to attack this black atlas snake. You guys act according to the situation. Don't fight it head-on. Use your strongest strength and attack as much as you can. Although this fellow's skin is thick and its strength is strong, we still have a chance of winning if we work together. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Her beautiful face was filled with a touch of seriousness. To her, fighting against someone of a higher rank was a common occurrence. Furthermore, she was not the only one facing the enemy. Until the last moment, no one would know the result. After everyone heard Bailey Hongzhuang's arrangement, they seemed to have found their backbone and were no longer anxious. There was no use in being anxious. The young palace master was not anxious in the face of such a situation. Young palace master, this black atlas snake's strength is too strong. It's too dangerous for you to be the main force. Long Xianjing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. Bailey Hongzhuang was the young palace master of Limitless Palace. If Bailey Hongzhuang was injured, Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Later on, all of us will do our best. Those who are strong enough will attack together with me. The others will be responsible for sneak attacks. Hit the snake where it hurts. We'll focus our attacks on this guy's weak point. I'll attract the snake's attention, and you guys take the opportunity to attack. Do you understand? Bailey Hongzhuang concisely explained the solution. This was the only way they could deal with this guy. Everyone nodded their heads when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression. Their expressions revealed their determination to fight to the death. The Black Atlas Snake had no intention of wasting his time on them. It had been a long time since he last tasted human flesh. Now that they were here, it was time for him to have a taste. Most importantly, there was a Beast King in this place. If the Beast King was eaten by it, then it would definitely be able to evolve and become a Beast King. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity. The skyscraping black snake had been stuck in this place for so many years. It had never thought that such a great opportunity would present itself. In the next moment, the skyscraping black snake directly attacked Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others quickly retreated and dodged the skyscraping black snake's tail. Chapter 23:59. Seeing the destructive power of the Black Atlas Snake, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was just a casual sweep of the Black Atlas Snake's tail, and everything around it was destroyed. It was hard to imagine what would happen to them if they were hit by the tail. Bailey Hongzhuang's origin energy surged out of her body. Her rank 3 Blue Realm aura was fully revealed. She was already at rank 1 Blue Realm. After absorbing the ice-cold fire, her rank 3 Blue Realm had increased by 2 levels. After sensing Bailey Hongzhuang's aura, the Black Atlas Snake immediately locked its gaze on Bailey Hongzhuang. It didn't expect this young cultivator to have reached such a level of cultivation. It even targeted Bailey Hongzhuang as its first target. Boom! Bailey Hongzhuang focused her mind, and a pillar of blood shot up into the sky. A bright red barrier enveloped the Black Atlas Snake. The faint smell of blood immediately spread in the air. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Baishu. Baishu immediately activated his rank suppression ability. The Black Atlas Serpent's strength was forcefully suppressed from rank 5 to rank 3 after the 2 shackles locked onto him. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang could suppress the Black Atlas Snake's strength by 2 levels when she used the blood aura. However, the Black Atlas Snake was too powerful. Therefore, she could only do it when she and Bai Shi worked together. Not only that, the blood aura could no longer help Bailey Hongzhuang increase her combat strength. Because the Black Atlas Snake body was too large, the blood aura was used to suppress it. After seeing the effect of this suppression, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, wicked beasts of this level were abnormal existences. They were more difficult to deal with than cultivators of the same level. However, when this scene fell into the eyes of Long, Xianjing, and the others, all of their hearts were in a perilous situation. It was unbelievable. Damn, isn't the young palace master a bit too powerful? The Black Atlas Snake's cultivation is being suppressed? Li Yongbing exclaimed. Pei Yifun's jaw dropped. It turned out that Bailey Hongzhuang had so many tricks up her sleeves. It was no wonder that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation wasn't high among the core disciples, but she was extremely calm when she was cultivating. She didn't even care about the provocation of everyone. After all, the strong never needed to prove their strength to the weak. Young Palace Master should be using the Blood Qi Tower's inheritance, Blood Qi Field, right? Yin Aoshuang keenly discovered this point. In the Shangxian continent, there were very few people who could obtain the Blood Aura Field. However, many people knew the use of the Blood Aura Field. Long Xuanjing's expression changed. Until now, they still didn't know how many trump cards the young empress had. Her strength was too astonishing. Everyone, keep your spirits up. We will cooperate according to the method that young Palace Master mentioned earlier. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure leaped up, standing in the air. Since breaking through to the Blue Realm, a cultivator had an additional ability, and that was to stand in the air. The Black Atlas Snake opened its bloody mouth and pounced towards Bailey Hongzhuang. It wanted to swallow this tiny human alive. Bailey Hongzhuang held the colored glazed sword in her hand and used Shadow Shift to attack the Black Atlas Snake. Ding ding ding. Chapter 2360. For the Black Snake, Bailey Hongzhuang's body was extremely small. However, there was an advantage to this. Bailey Hongzhuang's body was extremely agile. The Black Snake felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was like a fly. She kept spinning around in front of its eyes, but it couldn't catch her. It was extremely frustrated. When Bailey Hongzhuang attracted all of the Black Heaven-raising Snake's attention, Long Xianjing and the others quickly circled behind the Black Heaven-raising Snake and attacked its weak points. Against such a humongous creature like the Black Snake, they had no chance of winning in a direct confrontation. However, they had some experience in ambushing it. Ding ding ding. Everyone's weapons landed on the Black Snake's weak spot. However, the Black Snake's skin was too tough. It was like a natural defense. They couldn't break through it at all. The Black Snake could feel that everyone was scratching its back. However, it didn't care. Attacks that were below the Blue Realm could do no harm to it. The Black Atlas Serpent's defense is too strong. Our attacks are useless against it. If our weapons can't break through its defense, we'll use our martial arts skills. Long Xuanjing's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. The young palace master had single-handedly attracted all of the attacks from the great celestial snake. If they couldn't even seize this opportunity, it would be too embarrassing. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. Long Xianjing and the others unleashed their martial skills without holding back and bombarded the mysterious colossal serpent's weak spots. Even though there was a huge gap between their strength and the Black Atlas Serpents, their combined strength was enough to injure the Black Atlas Serpent. One had to know that even though their strength hadn't reached the Blue Realm, they were still in the Blue Realm. This was especially true for Long Xianjing. He was only one step away from breaking through to the Blue Realm. After the Black Snake sensed the elemental energy fluctuations coming from behind it, it couldn't ignore it anymore. This was because the elemental energy fluctuations were enough to injure it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't going to let the Black Snake get what it wanted. Her hands moved quickly, and a series of complicated seals appeared. She had been dodging the Black Snake's attacks, and had suffered quite a few injuries. Now that an opportunity to injure the black snake had presented itself, she wasn't going to let it go. Sea of flames. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly, and a sea of fire quickly formed behind her. The raging flames burned wildly, and Bailey Hongzhuang was like a god of fire, her hair curling up, majestic and awe-inspiring. After using this move, Bailey Hongzhuang was forced to retreat. Thinking back to the time when she had unleashed this move during the Battle of the Four Palaces, it had already caused such a great amount of destruction. Now that the 10 of them had unleashed their attacks together, the destructive power could be imagined. If they didn't retreat quickly, they would be severely injured or even killed. The three beasts and Bailey Hongzhuang quickly retreated, their hearts sighing. With the increase in Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, the power of the burial of the Sea of Flames was also much stronger than before. The black snake's body was huge. Even though it had predicted the danger, it couldn't retreat as fast as Bailey Hongzhuang. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 2361. Bailey Hongzhuang retreated for over 100 miles before stopping. She looked at the sky and saw that the elemental energy in the air was being stirred up and crackling. Sparks flew in all directions from afar. Different colored elemental energies gathered together, accompanied by the furious roar of the black Atlas snake. Roar! The black Atlas snake was furious. It had underestimated this group of humans and allowed them to injure it. In fact, ever since the black Atlas snake had been placed in the swamp, it had never seen any human cultivators. That was because the path that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were taking had never been taken before. Therefore, the black snake thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were just ordinary cultivators. He didn't expect them to be so strong, making him suffer a loss. Wow, Master, the power of your combined attacks is really amazing. Xiaohei looked at the swamp that had been destroyed by the flying sand and sighed. They were in a forest, but the trees in front of them had all been destroyed. All that was left was a barren land. The area within a radius of 100 miles was directly cleared by their attack. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was not happy about it. The skyscraping black serpent's defense is amazing and it's powerful. Even though it's injured, it's still strong. When Bailey Hongzhuang retreated, the black Atlas snake also had some time to retreat. However, it was inevitable that it would be injured. Master, as long as we can break through the black Atlas snake's defense, it will be much easier for us to attack it. Xiaobai said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. As the dust settled, the trees were no longer blocking their vision. It was clear at a glance. The ground in front of him had already cracked inch by inch. The swamp was also covered with dust and broken wood, covering everything. Bailey Hongzhuang stood motionless in the same place, looking for the great black snake in the barren land. On the other side, Long Xianjing and the others were also puzzled. A monster like the black Atlas snake was not easy to kill. They just did not know how effective the attack was. At this moment, the black Atlas snake roared angrily. Roar! Then, the mighty black serpent jumped out from the ruins and looked around angrily. The black scales on the black Atlas snake's body had been blown away. The wounds that were exposed were burned black by Bailey Hongzhuang's flames. There was a large pool of blood on the ground. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curved into a smile. The effect of this attack was very good. She was very satisfied. The great black snake angrily looked for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It was just a moment of carelessness and was seriously injured. If it didn't eat this group of people, how could its anger be appeased? Bailey Hongzhuang jumped and appeared a few hundred meters away from the black Atlas snake. Everyone do your best. Kill this black Atlas snake, and we will get the treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was loud and clear. Victory was in sight. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the Limitless Palace cultivators were shocked. Chapter 2362. Master, you have to be careful. The black Atlas snake is enraged. Its attack power will be terrifying. Baisher warned. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I understand. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher were talking, the black Atlas snake opened its mouth and spat out a black mist towards Bailey Hongzhuang. "Master, the mist is poisonous." Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flew, her shadow shifting to the extreme. Only then was she able to avoid the great black snake's mist. After Bailey Hongzhuang left, she realized that the sand on the ground was corroding. It was obvious how terrifying the poisonous gas was. The other cultivators shuddered when they saw this. They did not expect the black atlas snake to have such a trick up its sleeve. The swamp was a place where poisonous gas and dirty gas gathered. The black atlas snake had been in such an environment for a long time. Naturally, it had mastered the poisonous gas. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. It would be even more difficult to deal with the black atlas snake now. I will continue to attract the black atlas snake's attention. Everyone in the battle quickly and attack its wounds. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was loud and clear, reminding everyone. This was the only way. Once the black atlas snake used its poison, she would have to retreat. Such a terrifying poisonous gas would corrode a person's body in an instant. As the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang fell, Long Xianjing and the others also began to move. They all knew that in the face of such a mysterious sky-raising snake, even if the young palace master used all his skills, he would not be able to delay it for long, so they had to hurry. However, the black atlas snake knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were going to attack it. Before, he had already been injured by Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' attacks. Now, he would never give them the slightest chance. The black atlas snake ignored Bailey Hongzhuang's harassment. It turned around and spat out a mouthful of poisonous gas towards Long Xianjing and the others. Seeing this, Long Xianjing and the others quickly retreated. They were afraid that they would be infected. The black atlas snake was very happy when it saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were affected by the poisonous gas. It kept swinging its tail. Once Bailey Hongzhuang and the others got close, it would spit out the poisonous gas. The reason why the black atlas snake was so famous was because its poisonous gas was invincible. No one could attack it from close range. From this point alone, it was already in an invincible position. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already gathered together. Seeing the black atlas snake's fighting style, everyone was speechless. This guy's fighting style is completely shameless. Yin Ao Shuang's face was filled with indignation. Originally, they had thought that victory was within their grasp. Who would have thought that this fellow would have such a method, causing their attacks to be useless? Bailey Hongzhuang was also speechless. At such a distance, even if they used their martial skills, the black atlas snake would still be able to dodge them. This was too shameless. I was wondering why cultivators hated the black atlas snake the most. On one hand, it is because this guy is too strong. On the other hand, it is because of its fighting style. Are we going to continue to waste time here? Demonic beasts were different from them. They had more strength and yuan qi than them. If they continued to waste time like this, they could only waste time. Chapter 2363. Master, this guy's poison is too strong, and the area it sprays is too wide. It's too difficult to deal with it. Xiaohei shook her head. This kind of monster with such an abnormal talent was just like a tortoise. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted. Now they had completely offended this guy. If they couldn't solve this guy today, then it would be impossible for them to cross this swamp. Therefore, they had to defeat this shameless guy today. As a high-level monster, it had no moral integrity at all. How could they not teach this guy a lesson? For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others fell into deep thought. They couldn't get close to it, and their long-range attacks couldn't achieve any effect. How could they deal with this black atlas snake? Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up, and a smile slowly appeared on her face. It seems that we can only use some shameless methods to deal with this kind of shameless guy. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. She had forgotten that she had another trick up her sleeve. Long Xianjing and the others suddenly heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, and their eyes immediately locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. Their faces were full of anticipation. Young Palace Master, what method do you have? They had thought until their brains broke, but they still couldn't think of a way to deal with this black atlas snake. They didn't know what method the young Palace Master had thought of. At this moment, everyone was full of admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. Every time they didn't know what to do, Bailey Hongzhuang always seemed to be able to think of a way. Didn't this guy not let us get close to it? Then we won't get close to it. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a cunning light. She had followed Mistress for so long, and it wasn't for nothing. She still had some of the explosives she made in the past. Coincidentally, the black atlas snake was spitting out the black fog very happily. At this time, she would give the black atlas snake a big gift. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. They didn't understand what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Don't get close. If they didn't get close enough, they wouldn't be able to inflict any significant damage on the Black Colossus. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang took out the explosives from her Chaos Ring. Because the scope of the Primordial Chaos Ring was much larger than the Chinquan bag, Bailey Hongzhuang usually put everything in the Primordial Chaos Ring, and now it was very convenient to find it. Young Palace Master, what is this? Yin Aoshuang could not help but ask. Explosives? Explosives? The moment he said that, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Everyone in Limitless Palace knew that the Palace Mistress liked to make explosives. Who would have thought that the young Palace Mistress actually had explosives on her? Could it be that these explosives were given to the young Palace Master by the Palace Mistress? He still remembered that a few days ago, there was a time when the Palace Mistress made an explosive that shocked the entire Limitless Palace. If it was such a powerful explosive, it might really be able to achieve unexpected results. However, everyone didn't know that the explosive that Bailey Hongzhuang took out at this moment was much more powerful than the one that Nangong Wu had caused a commotion earlier. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This guy seems to have been hungry for a long time. It's just nice to give it some food. Chapter 2364. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. They still remembered the power of the explosives. If they were caught in the blast, it would be as powerful as the Black Atlas Snake's tail. When the Black Atlas Snake saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were stunned, it was extremely pleased. Previously, it was only injured because of its carelessness. Now it was going to eat these puny humans one by one. However, at this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure suddenly approached it. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang still dared to attack it, the Black Atlas Snake was surprised. However, the first person it wanted to eat was Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed, and when she was close to the Great Heaven Black Snake, the Great Heaven Black Snake had yet to spit out its black fog. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in the air with her hands on her hips, looking at the Great Heaven Black Snake provocatively. The Black Atlas Snake was already human. When it saw that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to provoke it, it was extremely angry. In the next second, the colossal black serpent opened its mouth wide and spat out a mouthful of poisonous gas. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang saw the Black Atlas Snake open its mouth, she threw the explosives in her hand into its mouth without hesitation. The Black Atlas Snake did not know what Bailey Hongzhuang was going to do. When it saw the thing thrown at it, it was too late for it to close its mouth. Gulp! The Black Atlas Snake swallowed the explosives directly into its stomach. Everyone retreat. Seeing that she had achieved her goal, Bailey Hongzhuang used Shadow Shift to escape. Long Xianjing and the others had already distanced themselves from the Black Atlas Snake. They were worried that the Black Atlas Snake would be suspicious of them, so they did not dare to make their movements too obvious. When they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they all ran as fast as they could. The sky-high black serpent was confused when he saw the tiny humans running away as if they had seen the god of plague. However, it soon found out what Bailey Hongzhuang had done to it. Boom! Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were running away, an earth-shattering explosion rang out. The ground cracked inch by inch, and it was spreading at a terrifying speed. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not dare to look behind them. They could only run as fast as they could. This was because the explosion was too frightening. In the process of running, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. Luckily, her shadow shift had reached the greater realm. Otherwise, she would not have been able to escape from the explosion. Long Xianjing and the others quickly left. They could hear the huge explosion and the wailing of the great black snake. This wail was the fear of death. It didn't contain any anger, only an indescribable fear and regret. Young Master Shadow's Black Atlas snakes. Fortunately, we escaped quickly. Otherwise, we would have lost our lives. I suddenly feel sorry for the Black Atlas snake. The Black Atlas snake was a demonic beast of such a level. In the end, it was going to die without a corpse. It was really sad. It wasn't until she was far enough away that Bailey Hongzhuang stopped and turned around. Behind her, there was already a fire, smoke, and dust filling the sky. It was like the end of the world. Chapter 2365. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the destructive power in the distance with satisfaction. Her lips slowly curled into a bright smile. It seemed that these explosives could still achieve some unexpected results sometimes. It was better to prepare more of them on a daily basis in case of an emergency. For example, if she encountered the Black Atlas snake, who was famous for his shameless tricks, she would use this method to deal with him. Boss, the power of your explosives is truly incredible. Xiaobai gave a thumbs up. The original problem was solved with just one set of explosives. The Black Atlas snake would never have thought that he would die in such a way. Baisher shook his head and sighed. He could guess the Black Atlas snake's plan. However, it could only be said that the Black Atlas snake was unlucky to have met its master. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Another obstacle has been cleared. We can continue moving forward. Long Xianjing and the others came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and looked at the scene behind them in amazement. Based on the destructive power of the explosives, the Black Atlas snake is definitely dead. Long Xianjing said slowly. As soon as he said that, everyone's faces were filled with excitement. They thought that they would be trapped in this place. They did not expect that everything would be solved so easily. Every time they solved a difficult problem, they would feel an indescribable sense of joy in their hearts. Young Palace Master, the power of your explosives is really too powerful. Pei Yifun's face was filled with joy. When he thought of the Black Atlas snake's clueless expression, he felt that it was very funny. Yes, young Palace Master. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. If the young Palace Master hadn't come up with this idea, they would have ended up in a completely different situation than the Great Black Snake. I just happened to bring the explosives. I did not expect them to be so effective. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It seemed that bringing more treasures with them was very beneficial. Everyone did not say anything else. However, in their hearts, Bailey Hongzhuang was already a god, with the young Palace Master leading them. It was as if the gods were helping them. The young Palace Master was always able to solve the problems that ordinary people couldn't solve at all. They couldn't do anything other than gasp in admiration. As the fluctuations in front gradually subsided, Bailey Hongzhuang said, "Let's go take a look." Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone perked up. Since the black colossal serpent was so hard to deal with, he must have left some treasures behind. The originally flat ground had already cracked inch by inch under the impact of the previous battle. It was like a huge spider web, spreading several meters deep into the ground. It looked extremely terrifying. The closer they got to the sky-scraping black serpent, the more terrifying the situation became. When everyone returned to their original location, they discovered that the Black Atlas snake had been torn apart by the explosion. Pieces of flesh and blood could be seen everywhere. Fresh blood had already stained the ground red, and there was an unpleasant smell of burnt flesh. The explosion of the explosives in the Black Atlas snake's body was within everyone's expectations. However, looking at the pitiful corpse in front of them, no one could link it to the majestic Black Atlas snake from before. Chapter 2366. Yin Aoshuang had already reached the place where the Black Atlas snake had fallen. However, she did not enter another place like before. Instead, she entered an empty space. Damn! Seeing this, everyone frowned. The Black Atlas snake was even harder to deal with than the tree demon. If they did not obtain anything after defeating the Black Atlas snake, wouldn't it be too unfair? Don't tell me there's nothing left. Could it be that the Black Atlas snake had already eaten all the treasures from before? This setting of the Battle of the Divine Throne is a little too perverse. Everyone was unhappy. They had spent so much effort to achieve this. If they did not obtain anything, it would be too depressing. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the swamp. If they did not obtain anything from the place where the black atlas snake had died, then the only place where there could be treasures would be in the swamp. However, what kind of treasures would live in the swamp? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. The swamp would only give birth to filthy things, not treasures. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were deep in thought, suddenly, there was a sound of movement. Hearing this sound, everyone could not help but look in the direction of the sound. All they saw was a stone bridge suddenly appearing in the swamp. As if it had appeared out of thin air, it suddenly pierced through the entire swamp. In the middle of the stone bridge, there was a stone platform with a brocade box placed on top of it. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could not help but look at each other. Their faces were filled with joy. It seemed that their judgment was right. After killing the black atlas snake, there would be treasures appearing. The black atlas snake's existence itself was a test for them. Bailey Hongzhuang led everyone onto the stone bridge without hesitation. The stone bridge was extremely sturdy. It was obviously meant to help everyone cross the swamp. Very quickly, everyone arrived in front of the stone platform. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened the brocade box on the platform. A stalk of ginseng was quietly placed in the brocade box. A thick medicinal fragrance wafted out, causing everyone's spirits to rise. Isn't this the black snake blood ginseng? Long Xianjing couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. The black snake blood ginseng was an extremely precious treasure. Wherever it grew, there would definitely be a black snake that had fallen. This black snake blood ginseng was bright red because it was dyed red by the blood of the black snake. Not only Long Xianjing, but the others also recognized the black snake blood ginseng. Especially Bailey Hongzhuang. As an alchemist, she was very familiar with these ingredients. The black snake blood ginseng was extremely precious, but its use was not to increase a cultivator's cultivation, but to temper the cultivator's body, making it stronger. When a cultivator's cultivation reached a certain level, their physical strength would also need to be strengthened to a certain extent. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand the explosive power in the later stages of the battle. However, most cultivators' physical strength was much weaker than their martial arts strength. Not only that, but the black snake itself was poisonous. Thus, after consuming the black snake blood ginseng, the cultivator's body would also gain a certain level of immunity to poison. If it was just some ordinary poison, the cultivator could automatically filter it out without causing any harm. Therefore, cultivators coveted the black snake blood ginseng. Chapter 2367. This battle of Zhualu is really generous. The black snake blood ginseng is rarely seen even in large-scale auctions. Yanao Shuang could not help but sigh. For cultivators of their level, their physical strength could not keep up with their cultivation. If they wanted to increase their physical strength before training, it would undoubtedly be a waste of time. Therefore, treasures like the black snake blood ginseng were fought over crazily. Usually, only the heirs of various factions could possess such treasures. As ordinary disciples, it was obviously impossible for them to obtain such treasures. Who would have thought that one would appear in front of them now? Compared to the black snake blood ginseng in front of them, they felt that the test of dealing with the black snake blood ginseng was not too much. After all, the value of this treasure was obvious. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw the black snake blood ginseng, a smile appeared on her face. This black snake blood ginseng was not young. If she refined it with some other herbs, the strength of the 10 of them would be increased. For a rare herb, only in the hands of an alchemist could it be used to its fullest potential. If they simply consumed it, not only would they not be able to use the herb to its fullest potential, but they would also be in danger of exploding. Although everyone was envious when they saw the black snake blood ginseng, no one said anything. In fact, they did not have any say in the distribution of the black snake blood ginseng. This was because the young palace master was the one who dealt with the black snake. Although they had helped a little from the situation of the last attack, even if they did not do anything, the young palace master could have dealt with the black snake. Therefore, they would not have any objections if the young palace master took the black snake blood ginseng. Bailey Hongzhuang picked up the black snake blood ginseng in front of everyone's eyes. Seeing this, everyone sighed in their hearts, but they quickly recovered their smiles. No matter what, it was already a fortunate thing for their team to be able to come this far. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's next words stunned everyone for a moment. It seems that we will have to stay here for a few more days. Once this was said, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Did the young palace master intend to absorb the black snake blood ginseng here? However, after thinking about it carefully, everyone felt that the young palace master's decision was correct. Participating in the Battle of Zhuolu was in itself a process of constantly improving oneself. After the cultivators obtained treasures, they would immediately replenish themselves. It was the same for the other teams. Only by improving their abilities would they have a higher chance of winning against other teams. I still have some other medicinal ingredients on hand. Just nice, I can refine this black snake blood ginseng into a medicinal pill. When the time comes, everyone will refine it before continuing. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a joyful smile. They happened to be in the black snake's territory. Even if the great black serpent was dead, the other beasts wouldn't dare to come here for a while. Therefore, it was extremely safe for them to stay here for the time being. Other than the cultivators' teams, they did not need to worry about any other dangers. Suddenly, everyone's eyes fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang, wondering if they had heard wrongly. Chapter 2368. However, from the looks of astonishment on everyone's faces, they knew that they did not hear wrongly. Because one person might have heard wrongly, but it was impossible for all of them to hear wrongly. Pei Yifan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. When Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in Limitless Palace, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had gone to the alchemy hall. At that time, this matter had caused a stir in Limitless Palace, but everyone was not too clear about Bailey Hongzhuang being an alchemist. However, after listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone understood that Bailey Hongzhuang must be an alchemist. Otherwise, she would definitely not say such words. However, the level of pills refined from a treasure like the black snake blood ginseng would definitely not be low. Bailey Hongzhuang was an extremely powerful cultivator, so they wondered how high her attainments in alchemy were. For a moment, everyone had some doubts in their hearts, but no one said anything. For the young palace master to make such a decision, they were already very grateful. Long Xianjing and Yan Aoshuang looked at each other. They did not have any understanding of the young palace master before, and all their understanding came from the Battle of Zhuolu. According to their judgment, the young palace master would never fight a battle without confidence. Since the young palace master had said so, she must have enough confidence. Thinking of this, the two of them had some expectations in their hearts. Such a multi-talented young palace master was really amazing. The palace master was a genius, and they did not expect their young palace master to be such a genius as well. Presumably, under the leadership of the young palace master, Limitless Palace would become better and better. At the very least, they were willing to follow the young palace master. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found a place to settle down, Bailey Hongzhuang took out her alchemy furnace. She had a lot of alchemy recipes, and the primordial chaos ring had always been rich in medicinal herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang was very confident in her ability to refine pills. I will start refining now. Everyone, pay attention to your surroundings to prevent any sneak attacks. They had already ventured deep into the Battle of Zhuolu and could encounter other teams at any time. They could not afford to let their guard down. Otherwise, if he was ambushed and lost his identity token, it would be terrible. Young Palace Master, don't worry. We will definitely be more careful. Long Xuanjing's voice was low and serious, and it had a kind of convincing power. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay. After giving instructions, Bailey Hongzhuang began to refine the pills. The three beasts habitually guarded by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Their spiritual power was very sharp. Long Xianjing and the rest stood to the side in a daze. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang concoct pills, the suspicions in their hearts had dissipated by quite a bit. From a young palace master's skillful technique, it could be seen that she was extremely familiar with this alchemy technique. Everyone who originally thought that they were extremely outstanding now felt ashamed of their inferiority. Only when they were compared to true geniuses would they realize the difference. No one dared to speak too much, fearing that they would affect Bailey Hongzhuang's alchemy. After long, Xianjing arranged for the guards to take turns. Everyone began to do their own things. Those who were guarding, those who were cultivating. Chapter 2369. To Bailey Hongzhuang, this was not a problem for her. Her experience in pill refinement was extremely rich, and her mental energy was extremely powerful. Hence, it was not difficult for her to refine the pill at the same time. Of course, one of the reasons for this was that the pill refined from the black snake blood ginseng was not of a very high grade. The reason why it had been refined into a pill was to add in some other herbs to maximize its medicinal properties. Furthermore, the medicinal properties were more gentle so that the cultivator would not feel too much pain when absorbing it. Time slowly passed, and the crowd watched as Bailey Hongzhuang concentrated on refining the pill. She was not distracted at all. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang in this state, the crowd sighed in admiration. No matter what the young palace lord was doing, she was always so focused. It was admirable. The process of refining the pill was not short. The cultivators in the group took turns to keep watch nearby. It was a good thing that no one else appeared. Gradually, a medicinal fragrance wafted from Bailey Hongzhuang's pill furnace. Smelling this medicinal fragrance, the crowd's eyes lit up with joy. The pill was about to be refined. Bailey Hongzhuang, who had maintained a calm expression, slowly curled the corners of her lips into a smile. Even though she had not refined pills for some time, her pill refinement skills had long been deeply ingrained in her mind. As long as this pill was refined successfully, everyone would need to spend another 2 days to absorb it. Then, everyone's physical strength would increase. If they were lucky, they might even be able to take advantage of this opportunity to increase their powers. Now, they were a team. Regardless of who in the group, the increase in their powers would increase the power of the entire group. Leader, there's a medicinal fragrance coming from the front. In the distance, a woman's sharp senses picked up the faint medicinal fragrance in the air. Hearing this woman's words, the cultivators in the group could not help but look puzzled. Who would be refining pills in the middle of the battle for the deer? It was already too late for them to search for treasures and snatch identity tokens. Refining pills was a very taxing task. Furthermore, they had to be on guard against any sneak attacks. Choosing to refine pills in the middle of the battle for the deer? Was there something wrong with their brains? However, this woman was very certain. I can guarantee that my judgment is absolutely not wrong. Someone must be concocting a pill, and the grade of this pill is not low. When the leader of the group saw the woman's solemn expression, his expression changed a little. Can you tell what kind of pill the other party is concocting? Since the other party chose to refine the pill in such an environment, I'm sure this pill will be of great use to the entire team. Let me judge. The woman closed her eyes and carefully sniffed the medicinal fragrance in the air, trying to determine the ingredients from the smell. A moment later, the woman opened her eyes. Her eyes were brighter than before. Captain, I'm unable to determine what kind of medicinal pill this is, but I'm certain that this medicinal pill contains an extremely precious medicinal ingredient, black snake blood ginseng. As the woman's voice fell, the expressions of all the cultivators in the group changed. Originally, they didn't take this matter to heart at all. They just thought that with the appearance of a team, they could go and snatch the identity cards again. Chapter 2370. The black snake blood ginseng was a huge treasure to cultivators. No matter what kind of pill the other party was refining, as long as there was the black snake blood ginseng, they could guess the effect of the pill. Are you sure? The leader looked at the woman who spoke. The black snake blood ginseng was a treasure with a high value. Even in the Battle of Zhuolu, it was hard to imagine that it would appear. Could it be that the other party had obtained the black snake blood ginseng here? Leader, I'm sure. The woman nodded. The other party's pill is about to be refined successfully. If we go over now, not only can we snatch the identity token, we can also snatch the pill. When she said that, everyone's face was filled with excitement. If they could snatch the pill, wouldn't their strength increase by a few points? The leader's face also revealed a smile. Since that's the case, what are we waiting for? As Bailey Hongzhuang's pill gradually took shape, the medicinal fragrance became stronger and stronger. Ding! Finally, following a crisp sound, Bailey Hongzhuang knocked on the lid of the furnace. The lid flew up into the air. Bailey Hongzhuang then took out a white porcelain bottle and poured all the pills into it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the pills in the white porcelain bottle. There were a total of 10 pills, not one more, not one less. Young Palace Master, you successfully refined the pill. Yin Aoshuang walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and congratulated her happily. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Our luck is not bad. There are exactly 10 pills. Let's absorb them later. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the disciples of Limitless Palace all revealed a happy smile. It was great that they followed the young Palace Master out. They had reaped a lot of rewards along the way. Now they were only glad that the young Palace Master had come with them. Otherwise, the situation would have been much worse. The Palace Master had found such a powerful successor. As disciples of Limitless Palace, they felt proud. However, just as everyone was immersed in joy, Bailey Hongzhuang's ears twitched. The joy on her face disappeared and was replaced by a solemn expression. It seems that an uninvited guest has come. Hearing this, Long Xianjing and the others began to observe their surroundings. If someone were to suddenly approach them at this time, it was very likely that they were here for their pills. The appearance of the other party at this time undoubtedly made everyone very unhappy. Bailey Hongzhuang kept the pill into her primordial chaos ring. Fortunately, the other party only appeared after she finished concocting the pill. Otherwise, this black snake blood ginseng would have gone to waste. The other party's movements were extremely small, but after Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, Long Xianjing and the others quickly determined the situation. Since you're already here, there's no need to hide. Just come out, Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. She looked at the trees in the distance with certainty. Even if the other party's ability to hide was not bad, her judgment was not weak either. She had already determined the other party's position. When the other party saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already discovered him, he no longer hid and walked out of the forest. I was wondering which team was refining pills here. So it's Limitless Palace. Chapter 2371. As the woman's voice fell, the cultivators behind her began to laugh, as if the actions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were unwise. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang saw the woman in front of her, her face instantly turned gloomy. His eyes, which were as deep as a pool, flickered with a cold luster of hatred. It was terrifyingly deep and quiet. Under her sleeves, Bailey Hongzhuang's hands gradually clenched into fists. Her knuckles turned white and her veins popped out. It could be seen how powerful she was. This was the first time she saw the face in front of her. However, this face had appeared countless times in her dreams. This person was none other than her irreconcilable enemy, Lan Qingyan, this woman who destroyed her family and plundered everything that belonged to her. Now, they finally met. When Long Xianjing and the rest heard Lan Qingyan's impolite ridicule, their faces were filled with anger. Although Limitless Palace had not been established for long, the strength that Limitless Palace had displayed was not something that could be ignored. Now, this person actually dared to use this to ridicule them. Wasn't this too much? I was wondering which team was so arrogant and condescending. So it's the famous Lan family. No wonder. Yin Aoshuang was not someone who would allow others to bully and humiliate her. Although the other party came from the famous Lan family, the disciples of Limitless Palace could not weaken the reputation of the sect. In fact, compared to the disciples of the sect, the aristocratic families were much more arrogant. Moreover, Lan Qingyan had been famous since young. Since young, she had always looked down on others. Regarding this point, they had long understood. As an expert and the next patriarch of the Lan family, this kind of arrogance was extremely normal. However, now that it had landed on the disciples of Limitless Palace, they would not back down so easily. After the cultivators of the Lan family heard Yin Aoshuang's words, their faces became gloomy. Compared to the ordinary families, their Lan family belonged to the ranks of the gifted. This was because the other families did not have the inheritance of the rainbow pearl. It was precisely because of this that their Lan family was one of the best, even among the aristocratic families. The other party was just a small sect that had just risen up. Moreover, when their Lan family expressed their goodwill to Limitless Palace, the palace master of Limitless Palace actually rejected them. This was undoubtedly a slap to their face. Not only that, after being rejected by Limitless Palace's palace master, before their Lan family could even express their anger, Limitless Palace's palace master directly expressed that he didn't like the Lan family. In the future, Limitless Palace wouldn't have any dealings with the Lan family. This was a blatant slap to the face. The Lan family had stood tall in the Shengxian continent for so many years. When had anyone dared to treat them like this? Most people were busy hugging the Lan family's thighs, but this Limitless Palace actually dared to take the initiative to provoke them. Therefore, this enmity had been formed long ago, now that they had met a disciple from Limitless Palace in this deer-chasing battle. They naturally wouldn't let the other party off so easily. Long Xianjing and the others naturally knew all of this, although they didn't have any enmity with the Lan clan, because they were disciples of the Limitless Palace. This enmity was unavoidable. Chapter 2372. With these words, Yin Aoshuang and the rest became even more furious. Extermination. The other party actually mentioned extermination the moment he opened his mouth. This was completely looking down on their sect to the extreme. If cultivators from other powers met, even if they would attack, their words wouldn't be so vicious. At this moment, the Lan family and Limitless Palace's cultivators met. It could be said that when enemies meet, their eyes would turn red. At that time, I don't know which family wanted to be on good terms with our Limitless Palace, but our palace lord didn't want to pay attention to them. Now that they're angry out of humiliation, could it be that they want to refute the truth? Long Xuanjing's words were also extremely impolite. He had always respected the palace lord. If not for the palace lord and his wife being so good to them, their strength wouldn't have improved so much. Now that they were out of the sect, everything they did represented the sect. They absolutely couldn't be weak. The Lan family's cultivators' faces were gloomy. This matter was the Lan family's humiliation. Normally, they wouldn't be willing to mention it. Now, the main culprit actually dared to take the initiative to mention this matter. This was simply intolerable. Immediately, the Lan family's cultivators all looked at Lan Qingyan, waiting for her to express her opinion. Lan Qingyan's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. She didn't know why, but the moment she saw this woman, she felt that something was wrong. She didn't know where this feeling came from, but she felt uncomfortable all over, as if she had met her natural enemy. Not only that, Lan Qingyan felt that this woman in front of her was somewhat familiar, as if she had seen her somewhere before. However, after thinking about it carefully, Lan Qingyan dispelled this possibility. Limitless Palace hadn't been established for long. Their Lan family and Limitless Palace didn't have any contact, so it was impossible for her to have seen anyone from Limitless Palace. However, she could feel that the other party's gaze was extremely complicated. It seemed to be a kind of hatred. Just as Lan Qingyan was about to take a closer look, the other party's expression returned to normal, as if Lan Qingyan's eyes were playing tricks on her. In fact, Lan Qingyan had never carefully looked at Mu Lingbing. Ever since she was sensible, she knew that Lan Yinxiao and Mu Lingbing were imprisoned. However, she didn't care about it at all, nor did she have the slightest interest. For a person who had already become a prisoner, it was meaningless to spend more time on her. At the very least, she was too lazy to waste more time on such a person. In all these years, the number of times she had seen Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao could be counted on one hand, and every time she saw them, it was from afar. Moreover, Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao had been tortured for so many years that their hair was disheveled and their faces dirty. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to see their faces clearly. In addition, Lan Qingyan didn't care about this at all, So when she saw this face that was extremely similar to Mu Lingbing's, she didn't recognize it at all. If it was Lan Qingyin's mother, Yu Manlan, who saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would be stunned. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had shown her true face in the Battle of Zhuolu, Bailey Hongzhuang had not made any special preparations to conceal her identity. However, when she saw Lan Qingyin's unsurprised expression, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Lan Qingyin did not recognize her. She didn't feel relieved about this. Instead, she felt that it was ironic. Chapter 2373. Even if she didn't understand, Lan Qingyin didn't like Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her. It was as if she was destined to be an enemy. The moment she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she felt a sense of disgust. The reason why she, Lan Qingyin, was so famous in the cultivation world was because she was powerful and the owner of the Rainbow Pearl. On the other hand, it was because she was as beautiful as a flower. It could be said that she was both beautiful and powerful. Because of this, the number of men who chased after Lan Qingyin was countless. This also contributed to her arrogant personality. There were many outstanding young men in the world for her to choose from. However, Lan Qingyin's heart was higher than the sky. Before she met the person she truly liked, everyone else was just a plaything for her to use. However, this was the first time Lan Qingyin was defeated by someone in terms of appearance. Even if she didn't want to admit it, the appearance of the woman in front of her really made her jealous. If Yu Manlan was here, she would discover that history was repeating itself. Thinking back, when Yu Manlan married into the Lan family, she was also very well off. Whether it was status, appearance, or power, she was one in a million, making people envious. But ever since Mu Lingbing had arrived, everything had changed. Mu Lingbing's appearance completely crushed Yu Manlan's. This made Yu Manlan's heart feel extremely unbalanced. She was praised since she was young, but later on, everyone's attention fell on Mu Lingbing. Therefore, she wanted to destroy everything Mu Lingbing had. She wanted Mu Lingbing to become a prisoner. She wanted Mu Lingbing to see her, Yu Manlan, take back all the glory that belonged to her. Who are you? Lan Qingyin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a burning gaze. Her tone was condescending. She almost instinctively wanted to know Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. However, she also made a decision in her heart. She wouldn't let any woman who was more beautiful than her appear in this world. Later, she would send Bailey Hongzhuang to the Yellow Springs. Wuji Palace, Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang said this sentence, her eyes were gloomy to the extreme. Since Lan Qingyin did not recognize her identity, she would hide for a while longer. When she appeared in the Lan family, she would clearly let everyone know that her real name was Lan Yishuan. Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyin muttered Bailey Hongzhuang's name, her smile full of ridicule and contempt. Never heard of it. You haven't heard of our young palace master's name. That's because you're ignorant. When Li Yongbing saw Lan Qingyin ridiculing Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't hold back the anger in his heart and immediately retorted. The current young palace lord's position in their hearts was no less than the palace lord's. How could they allow Lan Qingyin to humiliate him like this? Young palace master? After knowing Bailey Hongzhuang's identity, Lan Qingyin's expression turned serious. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with more respect. She only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was an ordinary disciple of Wuji Palace. She didn't expect that she was the young palace master of Wuji Palace. Her identity was completely different. Previously, she had not heard any news about the young palace master of Wuji Palace. Even when Wuji Palace participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, the leader was only a disciple. Chapter 2374. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Lan Qingyin coldly. She and Lan Qingyin only had a simple interaction, but she already understood Lan Qingyin's arrogant and insolent personality. It seemed that the Lan family had spent all their resources on Lan Qingyin all these years, and it had contributed to Lan Qingyin's personality that made people unhappy. Coincidentally, looking at Lan Qingyin like this, she felt even more disgusted. Bailey Hongzhuang, right? Lan Qingyin sized up Bailey Hongzhuang with an insolent smile on her lips, as if she was treating Bailey Hongzhuang as a commodity. As long as you hand over your identity token, the medicinal pills that you just refined, and all the treasures that you obtained from the Battle of Zhualu, kowtow, and apologize to me, and commit suicide to atone for your sins, I will let the other cultivators in your team go. How about it? Her arrogant words were full of contempt, as if it was a reward from a superior to a subordinate, waiting for the other party to kowtow and express their gratitude. Once these words came out, the disciples of Limitless Palace only felt the veins on their foreheads bulging. They had lived for so long, but they had never seen such an arrogant person. They knew that death was a common occurrence in the Battle of Zhualu, but the other party wanted their young palace master's life. This was too much. For a moment, the disciples of Limitless Palace only felt anger surging up their chests. Their whole body was like a bomb that was ignited. This was unbearable. Lan Qingyan was completely humiliating them all. After hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the cultivators of the Lan family all revealed smiles. Their young palace master had such a temper, but they liked this kind of domineering attitude. Their Lan family's team was already an extremely powerful existence in the Battle of Zhualu, not to mention that the one leading them was the young palace master who possessed the Rainbow Pearl. Back then, Limitless Palace had humiliated their Lan family and should have been punished long ago. Now that they had coincidentally met the other party's young palace master, if they could take the life of this young palace master, then the face that their Lan family had previously lost could be completely recovered. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips also curled into a cold smile. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with a cold and sharp light. I'll give you a chance. Do what you said just now, and I'll spare the lives of the cultivators in your team. Otherwise, I'll kill you without mercy. Lan Qingyan's arrogant words had provoked Bailey Hongzhuang's anger. She was now the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace. Both parties were on equal footing. Now, Lan Qingyan actually dared to speak such nonsense to her. If she didn't teach Lan Qingyan a lesson, wouldn't it weaken the prestige of Limitless Palace? When Lan Qingyan heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then she laughed out loud. Ha, that's really interesting. I, Lan Qingyan, have lived for so long, yet no one has ever dared to say such words to me. That's because you haven't seen the world, Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. When these words came out, Lan Qingyan was once again stunned. Her face could no longer maintain the indifferent and unconcerned expression from before. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's words made her unable to continue. On the contrary, the disciples of Limitless Palace gave a thumbs up to Bailey Hongzhuang in their hearts. The young palace mistress was indeed the young palace mistress. Even her ability to choke people with words was not something that ordinary people could compare to. Chapter 2375. Looks like you're not willing. Lan Qingyan's voice had a hint of viciousness. She had always been the one threatening others. Today, this woman actually dared to threaten her. It seemed that their Lan family and Limitless Palace were mutually exclusive existences. Today was the perfect opportunity to settle this once and for all. Is the Lan family's young lord such an idiot? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was full of speechlessness. Did I not express myself clearly enough? In terms of aura, Bailey Hongzhuang was not inferior to Lan Qingyan at all. As the young palace lord of the Lan family, Lan Qingyan was used to being bossy and domineering. Naturally, she created a kind of aura. However, this was only the young lord. Bailey Hongzhuang was the real family lord. She was the person who led the entire Bailey family to glory. How could she lose her aura in front of Lan Qingyan? Of course, at this time, Bailey Hongzhuang was also secretly thinking about what realm Lan Qingyan's strength had reached. Unfortunately, as the future family lord of the Lan family, Lan Qingyan had a lot of skills. As long as Lan Qingyan did not make a move, she would not be able to find out Lan Qingyan's true strength. However, with Di Beichen's strength as the standard, there was still a certain gap between her and Lan Qingyan. After all, Lan Qingyan still had the Rainbow Pearl, a treasure that could speed up cultivation and increase strength. You're courting death. At this moment, Lan Qingyin could no longer maintain the smile on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang did not say a single word, and it could arouse the anger in her heart. She was really abominable. She had never seen such an abominable woman. If she did not personally take Bailey Hongzhuang's life today, she would not be Lan Qingyin. In the next moment, Lan Qingyin's figure moved and directly attacked Bailey Hongzhuang. She wanted to pull out Bailey Hongzhuang's tongue and make sure that Bailey Hongzhuang would never say such words again. Whether it was Limitless Palace or Lan Clan, none of them expected Lan Qingyin to suddenly launch an attack. By the time they reacted, it was already too late. Bailey Hongzhuang had been paying attention to Lan Qingyin's situation. Hence, when Lan Qingyin made her move, she immediately reacted. He instantly used fulgurating shadows and dodged Lan Qingyin's attack. Ta-ta-ta! Bailey Hongzhuang tapped the ground with her feet and appeared 100 meters away. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a shocking, murderous aura. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife as she stared at Lan Qingyin. It was one thing for Lan Qingyin to be arrogant and despotic, but who would have thought that she would use a sneak attack? At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a bit of contempt for Lan Qingyin. When Lan Qingyin saw that Bailey Hongzhuang actually dodged her attack, her face turned ugly. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction to be so fast. One must know that she had used this move to deal with other cultivators in the past, and it had always been a 100% hit. It seemed that she still underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. According to her judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang should be younger than her by a few years. It was impossible for her to be stronger than her. What Lan Clan's young lord? She actually used such a despicable method like a sneak attack. It's really too shameless. After seeing Lan Qingyin's actions, Pei Yifan could not help but be dumbfounded. This was far from the demeanor of a young lord in his imagination. Chapter 2376. Originally, the disciples of Limitless Palace did not understand why their palace master would suddenly express her dislike for the Lan family. Now that they saw the actions of the Lan family's disciples, they completely understood. They also felt disgust towards such a family. Lan Qingyin's sneak attack failed, and she already felt very humiliated. Now that she heard Li Yongbing's criticism, her face turned even uglier. She immediately waved her hand and ordered the disciples behind her. What are you waiting for? Do it. She did not care about the thoughts of the Limitless Palace disciples, because from today onwards, this group of people would disappear from the battlefield of the Battle of Zhuolu. There was no one else in the vicinity. Once they killed them, no one would know who had killed them. Of course, to Lan Qingyin, it was not a big deal even if this news was known by others. The enmity between the Lan family and Limitless Palace had already been made clear. In this battle of vying for supremacy, it was normal for teams with enmity to fight each other. There were countless examples of teams being completely annihilated. She could only say that Limitless Palace's luck was not good. It was not easy to find a young palace master, but in her first battle of Zhuolu, she would die in their hands. After hearing Lan Qingyin's call, the Lan family's disciples came forward one after another. Without saying anything, the energy in their body had already surged out. They held their weapons in their hands and were ready to fight. Leave no one alive, Lan Qingyin said coldly. Yes. After hearing Lan Qingyin's order, the faces of the Limitless Palace disciples turned gloomy to the extreme. Not only was the Lan family's young master arrogant, she was also vicious and merciless. Once she opened her mouth, she would either exterminate the entire sect or leave no one alive. She simply treated the Limitless Palace as a soft persimmon. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her right hand slightly and said coldly, "Since the Lan family's young master has already made the decision for us, then what are we waiting for?" The Limitless Palace disciples had long been unable to suppress the anger in their hearts. At this moment, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's order, they all clenched the weapons in their hands. Towards these bastards in front of them, they could only beat them until they were speechless. "Exterminate this group of bastards," Xiaohei said angrily. Before meeting Lan Qingyin, the three beasts already had a lot of opinions about Lan Qingyin. Now, after meeting Lan Qingyin, their opinions were even greater. At first, he thought that Lan Qingyan was very young at that time, and that it was Lan Jingquang and Yuman Lan who stole the rainbow sacred pearl from his master. However, looking at Lan Qingyan now, he was afraid that she was even more annoying than her parents. I really feel that the Lan family must be blind to have chosen such a thing to be their patriarch. Xiaobai was speechless. Even if Lan Qingyan's strength was very strong, with her arrogant and egotistical personality, who knew how many enemies she would provoke for the Lan family in the future. You brought this upon yourself. Baisher's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. This Lan Qingyan was so rude. She snatched everything from Master and still dared to be arrogant here. She was simply abominable. The battle was on the verge of breaking out. Both sides had 10 people. Therefore, almost everyone met their opponent at the first moment. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally appeared in front of Lan Qingyan. She had tried her best to chase after Lan Qingyan for so many years. Only now did she appear in front of Lan Qingyan. She also wanted to know the gap between them. Chapter 2377. Boom! The origin energy in Lan Qingyan's body surged like a tidal wave. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed slightly and became more serious. Blue Realm Level 7. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately sensed Lan Qingyan's strength. Even though she already knew that Lan Qingyan was stronger than her, she did not expect her to be stronger by 4 levels. Fortunately, she had absorbed the icy cold fire. Otherwise, with her Blue Realm Level 1 strength, there was no way she could win against Lan Qingyan, who was Blue Realm Level 7. This was the accumulation of aristocratic families' resources. However, this kind of difference in strength was no longer terrifying to Bailey Hongzhuang. She started cultivating later than Lan Qingyan by so many years, but now she was able to catch up. Just from this point alone, it could be seen that Lan Qingyan's talent was not comparable to hers. If she was given a little more time, Lan Qingyan would definitely not be her opponent. It seemed that it would not be long before she could openly appear in front of the Lan family. When Lan Qingyan showed her strength, Bailey Hongzhuang also showed her strength. Lan Qingyan had always been curious about Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and her both used some kind of method to hide their strength, so it was impossible to determine. However, the moment she understood Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, she suddenly laughed out loud. Ha ha ha! I was wondering how powerful the young palace master of Wuji Palace was. It turns out that her strength is only Blue Realm Level 3. This kind of strength is not considered powerful in the entire Battle of Zhuolu. She is indeed a small sect that was established not long ago. She came to the Battle of Zhuolu to make a fool of herself. There was a big gap between the strength of the disciples and the successor. Because the successor could obtain the resources of the forces, their strength was naturally much stronger than the ordinary cultivators. The Battle of Zhuolu was a competition between the various forces. The successors competed against each other. The cultivators could never be compared to the successors. Similarly, the successor's strength also represented the strength of the force. Lan Qingyan had been famous since young. Her strength was much more powerful than the successors of the ordinary forces. It could be said that she had been famous for a long time. After the cultivators of the Lan family knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, they all laughed out loud. Young master, with your strength, I'm afraid you can finish her in less than 10 moves. She wants to be the young palace master with this little strength? What a fool's dream. Limitless Palace is a trash sect. It's normal to have such a young palace master. However, our young master is good. He's willing to help Limitless Palace get rid of such a useless trash. Chapter 2378. In the face of Lan Qingyan's ridicule, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared very calm. She did not get angry because of this humiliation. In fact, she did not know how much humiliation she faced along the way, but this kind of humiliation also made her progress faster. If I'm not wrong, your strength 3 years ago was probably not as good as mine, right? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. There was a 3-year gap between her and Lan Qingyan. 3 years later, Lan Qingyan was only at the 7th level of the Blue Realm. Thinking about it, Lan Qingyin probably just broke through to the blue realm 3 years ago, or even not yet. Once these words came out, Lan Qingyin's expression changed a little. She could see that Bailey Hongzhuang was younger than her, but she did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang was younger than her by 3 years. From the looks of it, if it was 3 years ago, she would only be in the green realm at that time. Then, could it be that her cultivation talent was not as good as Bailey Hongzhuang? After thinking about this point, Lan Qingyin's gaze became even more ruthless. Since she knew that the opponent's talent was so strong, if she did not take advantage of this opportunity to strangle the opponent in the cradle, when Bailey Hongzhuang grew up in the future, wouldn't it become a big trouble? Bailey Hongzhuang. So what if your talent is not weak? The current you is destined to not be my opponent. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for not being born a few years earlier. When Lan Qingyin said this sentence, the veins on Bailey Hongzhuang's temple suddenly burst. What Lan Qingyin said was something that she also regretted. If she was born a few years earlier, then she, Lan Qingyin, would have nothing to do with the Lan family now. At this moment, when Lan Qingyin said these words, it was really indescribably ironic. If I was born a few years earlier, wouldn't you have died in my hands? You should thank the heavens for not treating you badly and letting you live a few more years. In terms of the ability to anger people to death, Bailey Hongzhuang never admitted defeat. What a sharp tongue. But soon, you won't be able to speak anymore. As soon as Lan Qingyin finished speaking, the pressure of a level 7 blue realm instantly crushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. I'll show you how big the gap is between the 7th level and the 3rd level of the blue realm. At the level of the blue realm, there was a significant gap between each level. The difference of 4 levels was enough to prevent his opponent from unleashing his full strength. Lan Qingyin wanted to use this method to let Bailey Hongzhuang know that the current her was not someone Bailey Hongzhuang could defeat. She absolutely would not allow a girl whose looks and talent did not lose to hers to continue growing. Bailey Hongzhuang felt an earth-shattering pressure, as if a mountain was pressing down on her body. Her movements slowed down, and even the flow of elemental energy in her body was suppressed. Bailey Hongzhuang's entire body seemed to shrink in an instant, and her footsteps became especially heavy. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, the curve of Lan Qingyin's lips gradually widened. She was not in a hurry to kill Bailey Hongzhuang immediately. She wanted to humiliate Bailey Hongzhuang before she died. However, in the next moment, before Lan Qingyin's smile could fully bloom, it had already frozen. Within the stiffness, there was a trace of ridicule. Boom! Chapter 2379. Gotcha! A subtle sound rang out, and a crack appeared in the pressure space that Lan Qingyin spread out. Boom! As Bailey Hongzhuang fully displayed the energy of the blood aura field, Lan Qingyin's pressure space was completely shattered. Blood aura field. Lan Qingyin recognized the method used by Bailey Hongzhuang at a glance, and couldn't help but exclaim. For ordinary people, they might not be familiar with the blood aura field, but for the heirs of powerful forces, they were extremely familiar with the use of the blood aura field. When Lan Qingyin's strength reached the Crimson Realm, the clan elders brought her to the blood aura field. With her talent and strength, everyone thought that she would definitely be able to obtain the inheritance of the blood aura field, but the final result disappointed everyone. At that time, she was also full of confidence. Since young, she had always walked smoothly and had never suffered any setbacks. She felt that she was born to be a genius in the limelight. No matter what difficulties she faced in cultivation, they were not a problem for her. However, her first setback was in the blood aura tower. She worked hard for a long time, but still couldn't obtain the inheritance of the blood aura tower. At that time, she only remembered that there was a name written on the blood aura tower's record board that was similar to her age. Di Beichun. The elders told her that Di Beichun was the young lord of Tiangang's sect, which made her feel a little better. Thinking back, she stayed in the blood aura tower for a long time until there was no longer any possibility of obtaining the blood aura field. Then she left. Fortunately, she didn't hear any news of other people obtaining the blood aura field after that, which made her feel a little more at ease. After all, the inheritance of the blood aura field was extremely difficult to obtain. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only a few people who succeeded in the history of the blood aura tower. However, she actually saw the blood aura field on a girl who was younger than her by 3 years. At this moment, Lan Qingyin's eyes turned red. The thing that she couldn't do was actually done by a person she ridiculed. This was simply a slap in the face. Very quickly, Lan Qingyin retracted her shocked expression. She would never let Bailey Hongzhuang know about this. Bailey Hongzhuang ignored Lan Qingyin. After displaying the blood aura field, she urged the energy of the blood aura field to suppress Lan Qingyin's strength. Fortunately, Lan Qingyin did not have any other tricks up her sleeves. In a short period of time, Lan Qingyin's strength was suppressed from Blue Realm Level 7 to Blue Realm Level 5. However, during this process, Bailey Hongzhuang also discovered that the pressure of the blood chi field on different cultivators was different. If the opponent's strength was solid enough, then the blood aura field would only be able to suppress 2 ranks at most. If the opponent's foundation was not solid enough, then the blood aura field could suppress even more. So far, Bailey Hongzhuang had discovered that among all her previous opponents, suppressing Lan Qingyin's strength was the most difficult. Moreover, it consumed a lot of elemental energy. Just from this point, it could be seen that Lan Qingyin's reputation was not undeserved. Her strength was real. Therefore, she had to end this competition quickly. Once the time dragged on, the possibility of their failure would be greater. Chapter 2380. For Lan Qingyin, the most aggrieved thing was not this. Instead, after witnessing the power of the blood aura field, she finally understood how powerful it was. Ignoring the presence of coercion and lowering the opponent's cultivation, this was simply a cheat in battle. Although she had heard the elder mention it before, she always felt that the elder was exaggerating. How could there be such a magical ability in this world? However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang use it, she finally understood that the elder was not exaggerating at all. Everything the elder said was true. Not only Lan Qingyin, but the cultivators of the Lan family also changed their expressions when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang use the blood aura field to suppress Lan Qingyin's cultivation to level 5 of the Blue Realm. This kind of ability was too unbelievable. They had never seen the young master suffer such a big loss in the first exchange of blows with the other party. It seemed that the young palace master of Wuji Palace was not a simple character. You think that suppressing my cultivation by 2 levels is enough to deal with me? Lan Qingyin's face was ferocious and full of hatred. What a fool's dream. Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to talk nonsense with Lan Qingyin. Every time the blood aura field was maintained, it would consume more of her energy. Therefore, she had to resolve it as soon as possible. Cut the crap. Let's fight. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang held the colored glass sword tightly and attacked Lan Qingyin directly. Lan Qingyin saw that Bailey Hongzhuang actually dared to take the initiative to attack her, and the sarcasm in her eyes intensified. She immediately pulled out her long sword to meet the attack. Ding, ding, ding. The two figures were like the wind, and their movements were as fast as lightning. Every move was swift and fierce, wanting to kill the other party. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Lan Qingyin was a tough opponent the moment she fought with Lan Qingyin. The Lan family had been in Shangxian continent for so many years and had a lot of experience. Therefore, not only was Lan Qingyin's cultivation strong, her physical strength was also outstanding. In front of a cultivator of the same level, it was extremely difficult to fight someone a higher level. This was because the opponent also had the ability to fight someone of a higher level. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang was unsurprisingly at a disadvantage. Sword light overflowed in all directions and sparks flew everywhere. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Qingyin's attacks were thrilling and dangerous. If one was not careful, they would lose their lives. Ta-ta-ta. After a while, The two of them separated again like a whirlwind. Lan Xingyin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze that was more disdainful than before. She didn't expect that this unknown Limitless Palace's young palace mistress who appeared out of nowhere would have some ability. It was reasonable to say that even if her cultivation was suppressed to the 5th level of the Blue Realm, with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength of the 3rd level of the Blue Realm, she would not be able to compete with her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had managed to hold on despite the disparity in their powers. She had only suffered a minor injury. This was not the result she had wanted. She wanted to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Bailey Hongzhuang's clothes were already torn and fresh blood was faintly seeping out. Even though she was extremely careful just now, the disparity of 2 levels still caused her to be injured. "Master, how are you?" The 3 beasties saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was injured and immediately became concerned. At the same time, they had a deeper understanding of her powers. Chapter 2381. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand, indicating that she was fine. Although she did suffer some injuries, they weren't serious and didn't affect her. Seeing this, the 3 beasties were relieved. However, they stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and glared at Lan Xingyin. When Lan Xingyin saw the 3 contracted beasts in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, she was surprised at first, then the mockery in her eyes intensified. If her judgment was correct, the white demonic beast in front of her should be Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast. The other 2 were probably raised by Bailey Hongzhuang for fun. In the cultivation world, there were some women who liked cute demonic beasts and raised them as pets since they were young. However, Bailey Hongzhuang actually brought this kind of demonic beast to the Battle of Zhuolu. Wouldn't it be roasted and eaten? Trash is trash. Even the ones raised are useless trash. Lan Xingyin sneered. When these words came out, the 3 beasties were all enraged. "You ugly freak! How dare you insult me?" Xiaobai angrily shouted. This fellow had been unhappy for a long time. Now, she actually dared to call them trash? If you didn't steal someone else's rainbow pearl, would you have a position in the Lan family? You really think that you have an extraordinary destiny. Xiao Hei's words were even more thorough. She couldn't stand Lan Xingyin. Everything she had was stolen from her master. Now, she was acting as if she was born with a life of riches and honor. How laughable! After hearing Xiao Hei's words, Lan Xingyin couldn't help but stare blankly. Although many people knew about this matter, as she gradually grew up, there were fewer and fewer people who talked about this matter. Moreover, the Lan family had already sealed off the news. Other than a few well-informed forces, no one else knew about it. All these years, she had continuously displayed her abilities to tell everyone that her, Lan Xingyin, was definitely not inferior to that dead guy. Of course, she was also a little unhappy. After all, she didn't get the Rainbow God Pearl in a proper way. In the Lan family, as long as the Rainbow Pearl was mentioned, everyone couldn't help but think of the dead Lan Yunxiao's family. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's demonic beasts actually said such words. This made her flabbergasted. Wait, these 2 demonic beasts that looked like they were only for ornamental purposes could actually speak? Lan Xingyin looked at Xiao Hei and Xiaobai in shock. She only suspected that she had heard wrongly. How could this be possible? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. Whether I'm a waste or not, it's not something a guy like you can say. At least, I don't have such a shameless father and mother. As soon as she opened her mouth, Bailey Hongzhuang's spearhead pointed directly at Lan Xingyin's parents. If it wasn't for what Lan Xingyin and her family had done, how could she have been a waste in the general's residence for so many years? Now, Lan Xingyin called her was a trash. Soon, she would definitely trample Lan Xingyin under her feet. Then, she would tell everyone who was the real trash. After all, what she stole wasn't hers. Even if she had enjoyed 20 years of glory, it was only a flash in the pan. Lan Xingyin's expression became extremely ugly. This was the first time someone dared to poke her in the back. However, what her parents did was indeed irrefutable.